Hey everybody, what's up? Are you my fan? Because if you're my fans, I'm yours too. Vasil Ivanchuk. Vasily Ivanchuk. Vasily Ivanchuk. Ivanchuk. Rivanchuk. Vasily Rivanchuk. Varsity. Oh, there it is. Mr. Jaglubov has hit $20. Bump him up in the line. Bump him up in the line. Mr. Draglubov just donated $20. Move 11 gifting a gift one. A gift one tier sub. A tier 1 gift sub to the community. They've gifted a total of 403. Our two biggest donors in the house. Mr. Draglubov. Love of Dragons. Draglubov means like for love of dragons. So Mr. Slow donated $20 under an acronym Draglubov. And Move 11, thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub that went to Scott Post 123. And we've got Schumacher, who of course has to put in his game against me. Schumacher's game I omitted last week, so I decided to do his game first. Also, as a reminder, now I got you in the list. You are second on the list. Now you've been bumped up to second. But I like to get into form. It's better not that better not to be the first game necessarily. As for big gifting a tier 1 sub to Vargis. It sounds Vargis. It sounds almost Hungarian. Varga Zoltan. Vardyas is Hungarian name. Vardyas, Hungarian. Varga Zoltan. Vargis. Thank you, Mr. Slow. You're bringing up to $300. $300.66. Mr. Ginger. Hello, Master. Just don't call me sir. Someone on sound is not here. Who else is here? Alright, Move 11, we saw you. Mr. Coffee's not here. Mr. Sloan donated another gift sub to take him up to 1,201 gift subs. To Toast 1078. So anyway, we've got Schumacher game. Mr. Slow's game of Draglubov. Sun Prism with the game. Richie Smith with the game. Mr. Ginger. Mr. Ginger, if those other guys aren't here, I'll try to do your game a little earlier. Maybe if after Richard or something. Acerbate's here with a late submission for this week. So we got 6 games. Are we taking late submissions? Absolutely. Or you can also like pay extra to get your submission like bumped up. You have a league match tonight, but watch the VOD after getting home. Oh, okay. Rollerball? What kind of league are we talking about? Pickleball? They do all these remakes, right? Do remake Rollerball. Couldn't remake that though. Rewatch that. All right. So it sounds like something Mr. Slow would like. Anyway, all right. Let's get started with Schumacher. Let's get started with our Schumacher game versus me. Little warm-up analysis. White plays d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and then bishop b4. Nimzo hasn't been faring too well for me, and I think part of the problem is that I'm too predictable. I lost a game against Gal, who it sort of seemed like there was some kind of preparation there, but I got an E3 Nimzo, last Nimzo. Got to have more than one weapon so that people don't really put you on something. But Nimzo, people know my Nimzo is the main thing that I play. Queen C2, and then against this particular opponent, Schumacher. This is from online stream. This is the game. I mean, we've played like a million games this variation, so I've played every conceivable variation against him that I could think of. Now, this particular game, I played Castle, and move 11. We've looked at this a little bit. I think Castle's is a good move, but I don't have that much actual like playing experience in this variation, and I got a little confused. I Castle in the hopes that White plays E4 and goes into a very, very sharp position after E4 and D5. But my experience has been that like very few people do that, you know, unless they're like Justin Sarkar or someone who really likes theory. The players who I face online, like Schumacher, they tend not to play E4. Rather something like more solid. So he plays knight F3, and then against this, I prefer not to play in a Queen's Gambit Rogozin style, and like that's one of Black's main moves here. Now I'd be willing to wager that I played C5 against Schumacher several times. That's like a delayed C5 variation. That's all. He'll be happy there if I play that because he knows those variations pretty well. So, you know, B6 is interesting. I didn't consider that at the time. My assumption would be that like B6 is bad because of E4. I'm not sure how B6 can really be good. So, but it's interesting. If we look at the statistics, the move I played has the best score by Black, and the sample size is fairly chunky. So look at this. C5. Can you guys see those statistics on the screen? Barely. Let's try something. Can I zoom in? Create a QR code for this page. That's cool. Is there any way I could just zoom in? It would be cool if you could just zoom in. Does anybody know if there's like a way to zoom in on a particular part of the screen? That would be good. But anyway, even if we can't zoom in, you can see it if you look close enough. Streamlabs zoom filter. It's quite interesting, the statistics here. You know, C5 has like normal results. White is a tiny bit better. D5, which is a Rogozin transposition, white is a little bit better. But then suddenly, D6 is like, what is going on? D6, there's a serious amount of games, 364. White scores 25% and black with 30% wins. It's like an anomaly. So I played this variation. And Zlatko, my friend, has played D6 on move 4. So I'm just simply doing the same thing on move 5. And then maybe we can transpose. I look at the database here, check it out. The only move that has a good score is G3 for white. So G3 would actually, speaking of Catalan, G3 would basically transfer the game into a Kasparov G3, like 4G3 type of variation. Like Kasparov and what was his name? The cheater guy? You're not Yi. You're Bijak. What do you got, like amnesia or something? You started to think you're like a celebrity? But I guess G3 is just a straight up transposition. And it's You know what's logical about g3? Like you get this bishop and the diagonal is guaranteed to be open. So it's a pretty powerful diagonal. g3 is definitely like decent. So you played bishop g5, and then I can do knight on bd7. That seems to be the main move. But what I was really surprised by, honestly, is that like there's not a single game with c5. Okay, it's not as safe as knight on bd7. Clearly, and you know, we'll see in the game. I got in some trouble. Yeah, but I mean, well, c5 is kind of part of the plan oftentimes. And I mean, this pin is live, and I can play queen a5. I'm attacking your center. This is not so great, probably. Wow, there's a Joel Lau TA game against Anderson from 1991. I mean, not clear what you should play. e3 looks like Korchnoi versus some guy I've never heard of. Wow. So you have options here to play different moves. You have the leverage. That's what I said. It's a good snake Benoni. Yeah. It's not an Imzo, it's a snake Benoni. It's a bad Imzo and it's a good snake Benoni. It's something in the middle, you know. But he takes, and that's not a bad move, even though like it seems wrong to give up your center, to take away from the center. The question is like, which way am I going to take here? And I honestly am not 100% sure I spent a lot of time on this move. It was a simul. But again, I referenced my friend Zako Lincic. He likes to take a lot of times with the bishop in this type of scenario, and then it's very anti-positional looking, but sometimes we follow up with like a5. Here I would be nervous about things like this, let's say. But actually, I guess black can just not sack my queen, but maybe just something like this. I don't know that white necessarily has anything here. This is a weird position, but it's like black is visibly like equal. Okay, I don't think knight e4 may be a good move. The computer doesn't want to play knight e4. But I guess, you know, this guy here played h6. I never showed you guys Zako's weird idea in this variation, but I should mention that it has something to do with this. d6, knight f3, h6. He literally plays this. Like, I couldn't believe it. I told you guys I lost against him like 4 years ago following this game, and then I just couldn't believe that black has time to play h6. But that's a different position. Okay. Here we're playing castles first, and now on knight f3. I mean, yeah, you could still play h6 theoretically. d6, bishop g5. h6 is different now. Anyway, takes, and then rook d1. And now, of course, queen a5. This is not my only move, but the most natural. And now he takes. So very interesting position. And it's actually, you know, it might look like a strange position to some people, but this type of occurrence is not at all unusual for classical Nimzos, where white gives up the dark bishop. And I've never had a game quite like this with Schumacher. Well, I think my position was okay, and your position was okay, and it's quite a dynamic situation. But here, you know, you surprised me with a scary-looking move, g4, which it's active, very active. You create possibilities of g5 or h4 in g5. You have rook over and up. You discourage f5. for me, which might be an option later on. You also have simply like bishop develop on the diagonal. I mean, dude, you could play like g3, honestly, and that's like a similar idea, just not as aggressive and not as dangerous for me. So g4. Here the engine says like rook d3 is a major idea, which is a concept that I was, concerned about later. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, the other thing is like, you could play castles queenside, but not with my queen on d8. So there's any way to get castle queenside, for example. Not so easy. Here, 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 here. Then I didn't know what to do, but I like this. Number one, I like countering your bishop on the diagonal. And number two, I like my little cheapo with bishop a4. So I play this, get my worst piece out to either c6 or a4, and you meet the threat. The really nice move there with bishop d7, and here apparently you missed like queen c1, which is even stronger. It's like a rouser motif. Get the queen down on h6 when black has doubled f pawns. Yeah, I mean, there's a number of strong moves. Rook d3, getting out of this threat, and then queen c1. So rook d2, it was like a simple way of meeting the threat, but it didn't help you offensively. And actually, you take away this knight maneuver, which occurs in the game. But I mean, now I'm not really sure why I decided to exchange on c3. Actually, it seems okay, but I ended up like wasting time here. I'm not obligated to take here. I take, you take, you don't want a queen exchange. And now I think my next move is sus. Like, I played bishop a4, it looks pretty, but it forces you to put your queen on a good square. Can we look at our variation? Queen takes a2. Oh no. Yeah, dude, I mean, I don't like to do this kind of thing, like, in general. I mean, I'm just not developing my pieces here, so that looks dangerous. It's not so easy to say what white should play, though. This rook g1 is interesting, for example. I mean, Ars's move is possible, but I honestly... Maybe I'd be more inclined to do something like that in a one-on-one game, but it's really dangerous for black. It looks like you're just asking to get your queen trapped. No, it's totally playable. I don't think I even like realized I could play it, to be honest. But I don't think even if I did realize I could play it that... Because I'm making these moves very quickly. I don't think I would have played it if I had even seen it, And I like this anyway. So rook d2. And I didn't think he was playing this move to defend the pawn on a2, but maybe. I assumed he saw the threat of bishop a4, and that's why he played rook d2. But rook d2 also defends a2, ironically. Except after bishop takes, pawn takes, your pawn structure is messed up. But these pawns are pretty good, Boffinic pawn structure. It's important that I do have control of d5, though, and d4. So both the central squares are controlled by pawns, 3 out of 4. So now I think bishop a4 is a mistake. I mean, it looked like a good idea, and I expected you to play... I don't know. I expected you to play queen e4 or something. But you're dropping c3. And you also have this. Queen f4, queen h6. Or queen f6. So I just don't don't see how playing bishop a4 was a good idea for me. But I mean, I can't do nothing. But why not here? You know, like, why didn't I play bishop c6? This I would totally play under almost all circumstances in a normal world. I think on bishop there, maybe rook g1, getting out. Yeah, I wanted knight on c6 for some reason. Well, yeah, I mean, I just like, yeah. Well, I mean, I had to move my bishop, clearly, because I can't play this. I like drop a piece. I guess theoretically I could have played this. I didn't particularly like pinning myself, but it's another way to go. But this move seems to drive your queen to a better square. And this move I underestimated, as I expected queen e4, queen d3 or something. Now I go knight c6. Yeah, and I think that was a mistake. But I don't remember exactly why. Because knight d7 protects my f6 pawn, which ends up being a problem. So this looks like a passive move, but it's actually a really good move because this queen has down here. Yeah, I just like dogmatically wanted to put my knight on c6, where it's like more active than on d7. But I mean, seriously, if I put my knight on d7, I have this retreat square back to c6. Knight c6 is terrible for my bishop. Exactly. Trapped. You can say that again. And that's like 10 to 15 years in the federal penitentiary for trapping bishops. Yeah, knight d7 is alright. Almost loses a piece after queen a3. Oh god, I forgot about that. But almost doesn't count. Almost doesn't count. I have b6 and my queen's protected. Yeah, I mean, I can deal with your threats here, it looks like. I mean, this wouldn't be great, but your structure's not great either, so... Yeah, there's still rook d6, but I think that black will hold on here. Your structure's also messed up, if there's a queen trade. But that's not my main problem. My main problem is, like, blocking my bishop from moving at all. So after this, I get a really bad problem. This. Well, I didn't think it would be a long-term problem. I thought, okay, I can still move my knight, move my pieces back, you know, maybe knight e7 at some point. But I don't know. Maybe you have a better move here, but bishop g2 looks okay. Rook d8, and now castles. And now I really just, I'm like an idiot, you know. But I realized that if I play queen c7, which was my intention, I have problems with queen a3. This is really a problem now. This is no longer even like a question. Like, I have a serious problem. Only now it occurs to me that I'm like screwed. And I didn't want to play knight e5. Got him. I didn't want to play knight e5 because of the g5 square. So the only way I can like maneuver would be something like knight e7 maybe. It's still bad. Maybe this could be played, but after queen h6, knight here, g5. Maybe black can still defend. I guess. It's not so simple. So rook a d8, castles, and then this, and then I only realized suddenly, like, after I made the move that I was like, instead of bishop g2, maybe e4. Oh my gosh. Oh, e4. Whoa, e4. Okay, but why does he need e4? Yeah, I never considered the possibility of e4. But why e4? I mean, you're talking about g4, g5. So you don't want to play e3 because you don't want to block your queen. Aha. Yeah, I mean, it's a strange looking move, e4. Because you already have a zillion pawns on white squares. It looks strategically dubious. Yeah, I mean, that's not a move he would play on the surface. It looks like a bad move strategically. But Mr. So's point is like G5 somehow. I mean, I have stuff like continuous problems. It also stops B5, by the way. I have continuous problems. I should probably do something like that and try to hang on, maybe. But again, you have queen there. I have to play A3. I don't like this position a lot, but E4 is pretty unusual suggestion. Okay, knight C6, here, 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 and now this exchange is just dumb. But my problem was that I just assumed he would take with the queen, right? You just assume, okay, he'll take with the queen because he wants to get his queen in the game. But it's like, nope, not today. Knight takes D2, and I saw it before he played it, and I was like, you know, that might actually make sense because now he's threatening knight E4, and his bishop's open on the diagonal. My bishop's sitting there like an idiot on A4. What am I doing? So it wasn't until now that I realized I was like totally worse. Let's say I realized I was in big trouble at this point. You know, knight E4 is extremely strong. And I can't bring my queen back in the game. You know, I mean, I guess I could theoretically play like queen D8. It didn't occur to me. But here on knight E4, this thing is still a problem. So, hypothetically, guess I could play something like this. But I mean, I'm losing a pawn at least. It looks like. Actually, this might be really strong. This looks really strong. It looks horrible. Here, and then G5. Defend that. Game over, man. It's just game over, like, instantly. So, this is why I play king G7 to defend H6. He plays knight E4, and then I mean, I'm lost now. And he misses the win after knight E5, queen F4. There is no good way to defend this, apparently. So how quickly you can lose, you know, and not even realize you're losing to like 2 moves before you're losing. This is a question of like sense of danger. Because I'm playing a simul, my sense of danger is a little bit not so great. I'm not concentrating that well on each game, but still, both of us thought I was hanging on after knight d7, and he has a really nice shot. He just has knight takes f6, which he missed. Well, actually, we both missed. Although I didn't really have another move. Yeah, well, I do have another move, actually, like queen d8. But I think I saw this, probably. That's a freaking disaster, too, you know? What am I going to do about that? What am I going to do about that? There's nothing I can do about that. That's, like, ridiculously bad for black. I guess I'd have to play knight d7, and then it gets even worse. I'm really, like, just losing a piece or whatever. Yeah, so anyway. He missed a shot and played this lemon. And after the lemon, I'm okay. My queen gets back in the game. I win a pawn and I defend on the diagonal. You sent me another game. Okay. So knight h5 check black is okay now. And he goes too far. I mean, maybe he still has chances. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's equal pawns here. He's still okay. At this point, black is slightly better. Rook g8. And then, you know, pawn hunting. Rook h4 check. White is in a bad position. And I missed something really strong at one point. Queen h3. I think around here. Rook g1 takes, yes. Check, yes. But somewhere I missed a very strong move. Let's see. Anyway, I think that white is losing. He's down a pawn. His queen is misplaced. He has a bad knight. And it's very hard for white to survive. But I was nervous I would still mess this up. But he's pretty bad shape now. And my king side is totally consolidated. And now obviously this f2. Yeah, I mean he was winning. He was totally winning before. Eventually he just dropped a queen. But he's lost anyway. You know, it was amazing how quickly I had a lost position. And I got lucky there. Alright guys, thanks for joining. Thanks Mr. B-Jock submitted a game for next week. Yay! B-Jock for next week in the little book. Enver Bukic was the first grandmaster from Bosnia and Herzegovina, though it wasn't Bosnia and Herzegovina back then, it was Yugoslavia. He received the title of grandmaster in 1976, chess legend from Banja Luka. He achieved 3 silver medals in Yugoslav championships. Wow. So I didn't know anything about this guy, Bukic, but apparently you heard his resume. It's very strong. Okay, the former Yugoslavia has tremendous chess history. I'm not an expert on, obviously, Bosnian chess history. But Velimirovic with white against Bukic, and Velo plays e4. This is Mr. Slow's submission to the stream. I've got Mr. Slow, Richard, Mr. Ginger, Sun Prism, Acerbate. So, Sicilian, you know, I can't really emphasize how fundamentally risky the Sicilian is versus e4, e5. You know what I noticed yesterday? I was playing a lot of anonymous games on my phone, and everyone plays the Caro-Kann. Everyone. At the lowest levels. Is that Eric Rosen? It's not Magnus Carlsen who's like popularizing the Caro-Kann. What is it with the Caro-Kann, dude? You've ordered a book about Planinic. Yeah, Planinic is very interesting. Dormitron. That's another interesting player. Thanks, Arsenal fan. I mean, I heard of Planinic. Actually, he might not have even been a GM. I'm not sure. It's Gotham chess? Oh, God. So everyone plays the Caro-Kann, but the Caro-Kann basically is a relatively passive defense. I think that e4, e5 is better. But if you know, your first opening should really be e4, e5, and then things like assuming the Sicilian is a good opening for beginners and stuff. I started playing the Sicilian and the Peerage defense, and it was just because I was self-taught. I should have learned chess more classically, and I had a tough time like learning chess because, you know, getting like battered with the black pieces a lot. But I became a good defender. But anyway, playing black as a Sicilian player is very risky, and it's also not easy against a very strong attacking player. My point would be here against players like Velimirovic, who's a specialist really with white against the Sicilian. Velimirovic, Tal, Spassky, Emery Tate. I mean, you've got players who specifically like love to play the white side of the Sicilian. It seems like it's a bad idea to play the Sicilian against certain people. You know, like Velimir, if Velimirovic isn't one of the people who's like a bad idea to play the Sicilian against, then I don't know who is, you know. But anyway, you got to play what you play. You know, the guy. Dude, I mean, the Caro-Kann. Do you know how bad my score is with the Caro-Kann? I've won like maybe 2 games in my life or something with it. Big problem with the Caro-Kann is the advanced variation. There's no answer to the advanced variation. Okay, that's why it's so popular, because it's just good. you know. The main lines aren't a problem now because of knight f6, but the advance variation is like game over. Anyway, knight f3, e6, d4, takes, and Velimirovich was a big believer in open Sicilian, and it makes sense because black's king is in the center of the board. Like Larson said that he doesn't like the open Sicilian with white, famously because you're allowing black to trade toward the center. And, you know, that means that black has like a central pawn majority. But the problem with that thinking is like that's just one aspect of the position. Yes, I understand that you're trading toward the center, but black's king is in the middle of the board, and white's king can usually get to safety pretty quickly. Yeah, I mean, Larson loved to play the Sicilian, but he liked to play like the closed Sicilian with white and stuff, like closed Sicilian type stuff. So he would sooner play like knight c3 or something, rather than let black trade the central pawn. It's really a little bit obsessive, but all right. Anyway, main move here is bishop d3. Knight c3 as well, and now black played queen c7, which is the main line. But in recent years, in the last 20 years, b5 has really taken off. This wasn't gloves are off, man. He was not a world champion, dude, but whatever. He was close. He played the candidates matches. Yeah, but Larson never became world champion. Not really. All right, but b5, Larson's a great player. I mean, he's one of my favorite players, but I don't agree with him on the Sicilian thing. b5 is a modern move. Black plays queen c7. This is Paulson's original idea, the Paulson brothers. And so now, this is interesting. You know, you expect Velimirovich to play something like psycho-aggressive, but there is no way to play like psycho-aggressive chess against this queen c7 Paulson system. I mean, the problem is like the more aggressive moves aren't good. f4. Maybe f4 would be like the most aggressive move you could play. Most aggro. But g3 is like actually kind of solid. So I'm curious to see how Velimirovich plays this, because I've played this myself. I think it seems like a solid sort of Michael Adams-like approach. Well, b4 has a very good score. I didn't think this move was that good. It has a supreme score for black. So g3 is actually not good in this exact position. Well, actually, I'm lying if I said I play this, because I don't. I always play bishop d3 after a6. So I have played similar positions where my opponents play like knight c6 and I play knight c3. And on queen c7 I play g3 here, but this is a different position. Black doesn't have the direct pressure against c3, you know, so this is considered to be better. So it looks like Velimirivich's move might have a slight problem. There's this direct bishop b4. Black has a good score there. Though there's even like recent games. Yeah, but I mean, if white has to play this, it's kind of a concession. Actually, knight e4. This looks unpleasant for white. So black hesitates and plays knight c6, so this is definitely the best move. I wonder what he would have done against bishop b4. Bishop d2. So here's Gusenov versus Fabiano. He actually managed to beat Fabiano, probably like a stupid online tournament. Yeah, Gusenov, I think I beat him in a US Chess Live Blitz tournament years ago. Maybe 20 years ago, to win the money. Knight f6, bishop g2. So I guess bishop d2 is the best. All right. So this line is a little bit not so correct for white in the specific position to play g3. Knight c6. After knight c6, white is fine though. We go back into a normal line. Now knight f6, castles, and then black is really close to transposing to escape an Ingan now. You saw Rappert yesterday. That's funny. Oh, he's living in Belgrade. I had no idea like where he lived. It's so bizarre, dude, how the guy like plays for Romania, but he like lives in Serbia. Business is business. No, his girlfriend, his wife or whatever is Serbian. So castles, yeah, now black is screwed. This move seems to have the best score. You gotta be, knowledgeable about this. And when black isn't knowledgeable, they tend to go like passive, like soft passive. Bishop e7. But we're gonna get very close to my game with Aldisto the other day. Interesting though that Bukic doesn't play d6. b3. This is a weird move. Leonid Stein versus Matulovic, 1971. Okay, so when was this game played? The game that we're looking at was played in 1963. So there was another game. Leonid Stein versus Matulovic. Stein was a great master from the Soviet Union, but died very young, pretty young. Then later, say there's other games. So unclear who played this first. Yeah, I've never played b3. What would I have played here? I mean, rook e1 type of ideas are very common, but I think there's a tendency to like be worried about f2. Still, white is setting up knight d5, which is like Velimirovich's favorite sacrifice. But you can't do that after castles. So castles, knight takes c6, d takes c6, and e5. And here's Wang Hao versus Andrikin. For example, rook d8. This is a sharp position, but white has more space. Queen f3, knight d5. White just has more space. It's interesting. Maybe not that sharp, actually. So rook e1 I like. Yeah, and other things you can do are just keep the pieces on. a4 grabbing space on the queen side, restricting black. But this is surprising, b3. Doesn't have a great score for white. Now black plays castles. I like the way that black hasn't committed to playing d6. Did I have a comment there I missed? No. Okay. Just coming up. No, it's not a bad setup. I mean, a lot of people will do this in similar structures. Bishop b2. Nothing wrong with this for white. See, like the vast majority of players here played d6. Well, there's this. You've always got to watch the long diagonal. My problem with this type of setup, Mr. Slow, is that sometimes, like, people who play this way with white against me seem to have, like, some issues with the C file. So there would be, like, this sort of backwardness with that queen on c7 and white having problems, like, with the knight blocking his pawn. It's not always possible. You'd like to play knight e2 and c4. Look, I've seen a lot of people play this type of stuff. Alexander Ivanov, my former nemesis. But b5 is you can't allow e5 for white. Right. No, I mean d6 is a standard move. d6 is the standard move. And b5 looks really like loose. You know, like you're a zombie with a spiked bat. This is like asking for trouble, bro. You know, and that looks dangerous. He's the only person who played that. I mean, you're asking for knight d5, aren't you? Again. But I'm not looking at the moves. The other move that makes sense is trading, because the knight on c6 kind of gets in the way. So Granda Zuniga versus Pichot. Knight takes d4, queen takes d4. And Granda didn't play d6, he just played e5. So how does this end up? He just plays d6. The problem is, like, White has the situation, so he has to play this. And there you go. Situation. This is what I'm talking about. The situation. Knight e3. And now rook d8, which is a really lame move. I'll take Granda Zuniga for $500. By the way, Granda Zuniga is just unbelievable. I mean, he's like at his max rating, or was at his max rating, and he's like older than me, you know? He's unbelievable. What a natural talent. He must be close to his max rating there. And he's totally like over 50. He's probably like 55 plus. Maybe more, actually. He may be like late 50s. Just keeps going. But, yeah, I don't like rook d8. Not impressed by this Pichot guy. But if White doesn't get in c4, you know, it's not easy to get an advantage. Anyway, that's probably the way that Black should play. Instead, he plays b5, which is just asking for trouble. So the point is here. I mean, I was looking at this. You've got to consider this, right? Knight d5. This is Velimirovich, after all. Knight or ed5. ed5. I guess knight d4. And then what I wasn't sure was like what's happening here. Maybe we're just losing a piece, like we don't have time to take all the pieces. d6. We can only take one piece at a time. That's the problem. After bishop a8, you know, knight e6, and Black is up 2 pieces for a rook. I think this is the issue with knight to d5. We only can make 1 capture per move. So that doesn't work. The other idea is like taking and going for e5. Now Black takes with the pawn, and if you play e5, I guess Black can actually consider taking this here, and then there's no like crushing discovery because the bishop on b2 isn't. I mean, you could play knight d5, but it doesn't look clear to me. Let's see. Okay, even this is good. I have a game for move 11. Thank you, move 11. Alright, open game. Open game. It's an open game. Alright. Copy. Go back. Thank you, move 11. So, welcome everybody. So anyway, we're at the critical moment. White plays e5 directly. Well, I told you not to play b5. So now black just simply retreats. And the idea is that the c5 pawn is overextended. Like, you can't play f4, or you can play f4. Well, I don't know. Maybe even f4 is okay. No, but if f4, bishop b7, maybe it's not that bad. I guess that's the point. There's an element of this pawn maybe being a tiny bit overextended. But I think that b5 was really insane. The funny thing is, you'd expect Belomir to have like some kind of fancy tactic here, but ultimately he's not Tal, and he's not Richter. He plays what I would call a positional move in this spot. Nothing flashy. A4, which, you know, on the surface looks like it forces black to play b4. What's the point? Why can't black play b4? Because you have some kind of sick tactics? I mean, it's Velimirovich, so we're looking at these like knight sacrifices, right? But after b4, I'm just like keep thinking, like, how does this open up? How do we do this? You know, where's the secret sauce? Even this knight protects g7. There doesn't seem to be like. Look, it might work as a kind of long-term piece sacrifice. Right. Well, just knight e4 is the routine move, Mr. Slow, of course. This is interesting, but it's not enough. The engine just says it's not enough. No, yeah, I mean, knight e4 definitely. But what I'm trying to understand is like why black would decline this option, which looks like the most natural. Of course, knight e4 is a standard move. And you can't take. You could try taking with the knight, maybe. I mean, just for kicks, let's see. Check. Bishop takes a8. Would it be fair to say, like, black might have some compensation for the exchange here? Wow, black's winning. So, well, winning according to Stockfish. So the question would be this. Look, I think that white has strong comp. f4. Knight has to go back. You have like... I mean, you don't have to sacrifice anything for white to have compensation here. White has compensation for the sacrificed pawn. But again, I don't understand black's play. He plays rook b8. But why not b4? I didn't see a clear move. And now a surprising move. I expected him to take here. I guess I expected takes, knight takes d4. Takes, knight takes d4, queen takes d4. But it feels like black is hanging on. Let me go back. Yeah, so after b5, rook b8, b5, a4, rook b8, I guess he just decided that a takes b was nothing special, so he played this, which changes the structure very much. Yeah, okay, we're not down any pawns. We've got a crushing space advantage with e5, nothing fancy, and then here. So what I would say about this game is, like, I was expecting something like, it's Velimirovich, I'm expecting something like flashy, but his play was rather straightforward, you know? He just takes on c6, he gets a big space advantage. I could have played this position in the ready or something. Oh, I know. I'm sure it'll get interesting. No, I'm just commenting from what I've seen so far. Yeah, no, white has a beautiful position. It's space based on the e5 pawn. It could have been a ready. Like, seriously, it totally could have been a ready, not a Sicilian. c5. I mean, white's pieces have a lot of scope. Now even the rook has scope. This could have been Emery Tate playing white too, so far. But alright. Bishop b7. And that's a great exchange if black can get it. Now, the problem for black is serious. And it's not a tactical one. He has a knight on e8. And if you've studied any Petrosian King's Indian attacks, knight on e8 is not good. Knight on e8 has nowhere to go. And its only options are getting fianchettoed on the king's side with g6, which is really, really, really bad here. Or option B, which is like going through c7 and trying to crawl back into the game somehow. You know, God forbid, like knight c7, c4, and the knight has no squares. Maybe it goes to a6, crawls off to the side of the board and dies. No, that knight is losing the game for black in this position. While one man sees a tactical brilliancy, another man, you know, one man's tactical brilliancy is another man's like positional crush. You know, is the backstory to this game. Queen h5, black is like lost already. And then he goes for the kingside knight fianchetto. Ooh, bro. This is bad. But I have a question. Why not like exchange the bishop on e4? Because you're gonna get mated with well, he's probably gonna consider doing that. After g6, queen e2. I expected queen h6. And if knight g7, then e4. That's your other e4, the g1. But I think that the point is we can trade here at some point and eliminate the knight on e4. And it's not so easy. It's not so easy to finish black off. It would be quite a process to do like h for h5. Black could trap your queen with like queen d8, bishop g5 maybe. The bishop on b2 is sort of shut down, so I think black will exchange the knight on e4. Black has to keep that in mind. So he doesn't go for direct attack, he plays queen e2. Which is probably like thinking the queen h6 wasn't good enough. But again, I have to ask the question, like, what happens here? It's a better position for white. Is black lost necessarily? No. I mean, I think anyone with a very strong sense of danger has to seriously consider this. Because you're really playing with fire at this point. When he plays knight g7, he's like begging white to play like knight f6 check or something. I don't know. Every move he passes on bishop takes e4, I'm afraid something's going to happen. I would seriously play bishop takes e4. The knight has to go. It's just too strong. You know, and then hope to survive. Obviously, white is better. The longer that knight stays on e4, yeah, rook a7 pinning him. Okay, queen b6, and now rook ea1. And again, you know, now we start to have some technical problems. Maybe the loss of the a file didn't help. So this, for example, here, you're really like getting destroyed. I mean, this is hanging, white's threatening rook a6, and your queen is almost trapped. It would have been simpler to play bishop takes e4 before, though it wouldn't have equalized. He plays knight f5, and now knight d6. So he gets the exchange that he wants, like bishop takes g2, which looks good. But there's an intermezzo. Oh no. Intermezzo. Bishop on e7 is hanging. Oh, don't tell me it's going to be ops-colored bishops now. No. So Velimirovich could take on e7 and have an ops-colored bishop position. But if you take on e7, the problem is maybe black is actually faster than white, attacking on the relative color complex. So in between move, after knight takes f5, g takes f5, rook a6. Surprise! And now only move, and he doesn't get opposite color bishops, he just gets same color bishops. In fact, with a bad bishop on b2, and the slightest weakening of the black king side, just the pawn on e5 is extremely cramping. So now black plays the desperate looking c4. And obviously we have access to like d5 with check. He wants to get this bishop out so it's not condemned to uselessness. Queen e3 preventing bishop c5. Takes. No. Rook d6. Aha. Oh. Okay. Now we start to get some interesting ideas. The black king is open. Little crafty little tactic. Forcing queen e8. It's not that hard to see that this is extremely dangerous for black. Bishop takes d6. But where exactly is the win? Okay, you can't take because you get mated. And if you can't take because you get mated, then you probably have to play something like this. And then you get mated anyway. Because of like queen h6, f6, queen g7. Looks pretty bad. So this, followed by this, yeah. There's no opening the long diagonal. He has to play queen e8, and now rook d7. Pretty good with limited pieces on the board. Bishop d8, and now just recapture. So what we see is like a guy who's what feels like even stronger with less pieces on the board than with more pieces on the board. Kind of like acerbate. Black's totally just spatially like crushed by the e5 pawn. Just one pawn. One pawn and a bad bishop behind it. A lot of nucleotides or whatever. Into the diagonal death, queen h6. Yeah, it's aesthetic. But I would argue that this game is completely positional. Rook c8, and who said it wasn't? Bishop a3. Now all pieces maxed out. Yeah, it's like attacking chess, but in a very positional style. Bishop b6, and then we just win material. Takes. Takes and takes a check, and then rook f6, and then we get to snap this, and that's it. Yeah, very nice. Nimzo Larson. Yeah, I mean, as I said, like this could have been already, honestly. When you see the position after like 20 moves, it doesn't have to be an open Sicilian. All right, what do we got next? Sung Prism, Richard, Mr. Ginger. Maybe I'll do Mr. Ginger first. Duncan Suttles. All right, guys, don't forget to donate, support the stream. I'll be back in a minute, and we'll continue. Okay, guys, we're back. We're back. Mr. Slow, thank you for... Oh, Mr. Coffee has resubscribed, Tier 2 for 77 months in a row. Mr. Coffee was here watching class while I was gone. Thanks, Mr. Coffee. Alright, guys. I guess we'll do Sun Prism. No, yes. Sun Prism is here or not? Sun Prism... Did I see Sun Prism here? No, I'll do the player whoever's here. Yeah, alright. Whoever's here. Oh no, another F3 Nimzo? This is not... This is the same FM. I just want to comment on LaFong, who, you know, the other day the dude was streaming. I just want to say how like, I don't really know much about him, but it's really cheesy to like make your stream title like, I beat Grandmaster Dolgov or whatever. You know, the guy is weird, but whatever. Alright, I'm not going to criticize everyone. He put his stream title as like, it's like, dude, that's pathetic. But anyway, alright. I beat Grandmaster blah blah blah. It's like, what? That's cheesy, dude. Alright. The guy's kind of cheesy, man, but whatever. He did raid my stream once on Kick when there was no one else there. So D4, Knight F6, you're black. And then, yeah, I don't like this F3 Nimzo, dude. Oh, you played D5 this time. Yeah, you should stick with the other line. So Ginger, you're treading a very thin line. I don't like to be rushed, Mr. Ginger. Got the band hammer ready, Mr. Coffee? E6, Knight C3, Bishop E4. I do them when I'm going to do them. What did we get? Another donation? Punchin has followed. I like this. Idyllic chess. Idyllic. We have 9 viewers. There's 13 viewers. So the guy continues to play this F3, man. I love playing SF3, and you should absolutely continue to play C5. The other possibility is playing castles. Actually, there's a lot of possibilities. You know, you can also play D6. And you can combine D6 with C5 and B5 too. But alright. Big mistake though. You know, you're going back. I learned my lesson a long time ago not to play this. Don't play this variation. Or if you do play it, then play something interesting. But don't do the old school bishop takes C3, okay? This is... What am I thinking? You play D5, he plays A3. Yeah, this is the worst variation for black. I learned it the hard way. Once I had this game with Tot Ervin where I was like -8 and I won or something. It was like the worst game of my life that I ever won. This is the worst variation. So if you insist on playing this line, you know, you might want to look at the other main line, which is bishop E7. Now LaFong is going to know that, and there's a lot of theory in that, but there is a new idea here as well. Relatively new idea. If you play bishop E7 and they play E4, there's like takes, and C5, which is really, really weird. You know, I don't take any responsibility for what happens after this, but there's some interesting ideas. The other move that's very interesting is bishop D6. And That's another move that I would say most likely the hero here with white maybe not know what he might not know what he's doing that well. But the absolute worst thing you can do is play d5, a3, bishop takes c3, b takes c, c5. This is absolutely pure suffering for black. And I won't touch it with a 10-foot pole anymore. I want no part in this bullshit. White just has like the bishop pair, and white is slightly better, and screw it, you know. Carlsen won a game. Carlsen won 2 games. Well, that had nothing to do with the opening, I assure you. So c takes d5, and then knight takes d5, and then, okay, d takes c5. Here you played f5, and I've looked at this. Yeah, well, you're not even going to get a draw, because white is just, like, better in these positions. The f5 might be a better try than the normal queen a5. I know this is a thing. Alright, knight h3. This is another player, and another thing about, like, you know, Lafang and players like his ilk. The guy probably memorizes a lot of theory, you know. But I would imagine if you just put him in situations where he's not in his memorized book, he's probably not nearly as good. Okay, queen a5. Now knight f4. I don't know anything about this line. You know, it seems a little bit counterintuitive to play f5 and then play queen a5. Like, I feel like our I mean, if you wanted to play queen a5 right away, but what about other possibilities? What happens here on castles? Is there anything more aggressive we can do? There is c4. I literally know nothing about this. Wow, these are like ancient games. Beliavsky Portish, 1990. So we're not like reinventing the wheel here. Okay, so here, this is still book. There's a million games, mostly draws. I mean, can I ask a question? Are all those games correspondence games? Anonymous Gifter gave Gita B. Gita B got a gift sub. Thank you, Anonymous Gifter. From now on, we're going to refer to Anonymous Gifters as Anonymous Grifters. Just to sound cool. Guys, can you explain to me how in this position, which like seems like a lot of imbalance, there's so many freaking draws? Does anybody want to guess? I have a theory. You know, it's like, not that the position is necessarily that drawish in a random game. No, I think like there must be a lot of correspondence games. The correspondence players tend to pick out variations and have, you know, a lot of games maybe in the same tournament, even thematic tournaments possibly. So oftentimes you pick an obscure variation like this and there's just like a ridiculous amount of draws. I mean, what are these games here? Okay, top 2 are over-the-board games. There's a lot of over-the-board games. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see, well, the higher rated players. Yeah, I don't see correspondence games. The number of draws here is like ridiculous. I mean, how can there be that many draws? It's crazy. 86% draws? Dude, both kings are in the center, the queens are on the board, the position is imbalanced. How the heck does it end up with 86% draws? We're gonna see. It's like a very forcing specific line. You know, Volkov has a couple games there. You know, he's gone down. He's getting old like me, but Volkov played in the Russian Championship. he's a very strong grandmaster, or was. But he's also one of the few players who was a regular F3 Nimzo player. There's only, so many people who specialize in this variation with white. Volkov was one of them, but I remember him losing some games in the line in the last time he played in the Russian Championship, maybe a few years ago. There you go. So that's what I'm talking about. That was what I was talking about. Now we see. See, this is where the games come from. Maybe Sun Prism is secretly a correspondence GM. Because there's only one OTB game, and the rest are all correspondence. Well, maybe you memorize the correspondence database. The Gorichkina game is the only game that's not a correspondence game. The first one. They're all just random correspondence players that I've never heard of. These are not over-the-board games. None of them. Literally, only the one game out of 14 is an OTB game. Because I don't ever heard of any of the players, bro, and they're all weird names, Lucas Esposito, Kevin Payne. These people are 1900 players using the computers to play correspondence chess. I mean, it's possible I'm wrong about one of them or something. But how would I not have heard of any of these people when I've been playing over the board chess for 40 years, This is the only one. But yeah, I mean, no, in a way he's right. I mean, dude, did you prepare specifically this variation, try to get a draw against the guy? You really, it's a really obscure variation. Well, I would get the impression that you were using the Opening Explorer or something. He's not, out of line to think you might be cheating here if he doesn't really know you. I don't know about an engine, but he could be not off base if he says, well, I think this guy might be using an Opening Explorer, because it looks it's unusual that someone would get this far. But we left book here. He's out of his book now. All 14 games, including the OTB game where Queen B3, preventing black from castling, he plays Queen D3, and now you did 95, but I mean 95 is a strange move for you. Why the heck are you playing 95? How dare you play 95? You're up a pawn. Your king might be safer after castles. Your king is in the middle of the board. You're doing an acerbate move here. And just on principle, it seems like a risky thing to play when you could just simply castle. He has rook c1, but it doesn't look like it really does anything. Yeah, I mean, now, he realizes if he trades, he doesn't want to trade in this position, but the question is how dangerous is it to not trade? For example, here, d3 check. I'd be lying if I said I haven't had an f3 Nimzo where my opponent maneuvered the king did to g3. think he should try, if possible, to play in a way where he keeps that dark square bishop on the board at all cost. But obviously we see one of the other problems with the queen on d3. Now he's just like down a pawn for nothing. Maybe he can regain the d pawn by attacking it here. That's what he does. Yeah. So it looks like you can't save your pawn. You can't save your pawn, but you have another possible advantage, which would be like, in the long run, maybe his king is a little open, or more open than yours, but ultimately, it's pretty snug on f2. You know, I think he's fine. It's just a draw. Down, Asterbate. Queen takes d4. Yeah, I mean, this position, his king is better than yours in an endgame. But momentarily, his king is not. So, in this situation, you should make a priority not trading queens, if it's possible. And it doesn't mean that you're, like, not trying to draw. It's not like you're avoiding exchanges because you don't want to draw. Say a draw is okay, but still, if you trade queens, maybe you're even like a tiny bit worse. I don't know. You know, you have a queenside majority, which is oftentimes a little overrated. But I mean, the point is his king is closer to the end game, and you also have a terrible time with end games. So you know, the first thing I would consider would be moving the queen. Let's say queen c7. I mean, he does have annoying moves like this, but you will just keep like avoiding the exchange of queens, I think. No, the other move is queen a5. That'll allow trade of queens anyway. So it looks like you have to be thoughtful here. I say you get your pieces in quicker than him. Your king is safer, probably. Queenside majority, I think, is not a big deal here. It's something overrated. So we need to play queen c7. And he'll probably play e3. And then you play bishop e6. And I prefer black. The white is probably equal with careful play. Now again, he's going to try to go out of his way to find a way to trade queens. And eventually you may have to trade queens, but hopefully you can trade queens in a situation where, you know, at least like you get your king to the center. And the position is like truly equal. Let's say like here, 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 here. And, you know, this is just like the kind of situation where actually you could even start to be better because that queenside majority might actually prove to be a real advantage in the bishop ending or king and pawn game. But yeah, this is a big mistake, probably trading queens. Now maybe you're still equal. Bishop e6, e3, this is right. He plays bishop e2, and then, oh, that's a surprising move, but yeah, what was he supposed to do? Oh, he had bishop c4. He could try bishop c4 maybe. See, this is tricky now. You allow him a passed pawn. True, it's an isolated pawn, but it's still powerful and it restricts you to some degree. Now the c file, you have two choices: attack his pawn with rook d8, or play rook c8 and take the open file. Which is better? Now it's possible that taking the open file is better. I mean, he can easily protect his pawn with king up. And then his rook is going to go to an open file. So it's very possible that rook d8 does nothing. No, he honestly should probably play this. But, you know, f4 check. King e4. I wasn't sure about this. It's gonna get crazy. You know, maybe you're even better or something crazy like that, but I don't think so. His king is looking kind of powerful on e5. So I think you have to be careful here. But if he gets to open file and gets down in your position, you're worse. Rook d8, and then this surprising move, rook d1. Now you're absolutely okay, and I think you should consider f4. There's some risk involved with that. This gets here, and on rook takes d4, he has bishop h7 check. Yeah, I mean, my gut instinct is that the rook on d8 was a mistake. You know, you shouldn't put the rook d8. You should go here. And your priority should be blockading this pawn as well as getting your king toward the center. So something like bishop d5, king on d6, you can only be better. Instead, rook d8 was a mistake. Rook d1, and this is a mistake. Placing your pawns on the wrong color is just asking for trouble. Because he can walk in here on the dark squares and just, like, kill you, you know? I'm not sure his move is even a good move, objectively. It's not bad, but, I mean, I think he should prefer to try to get his king active than necessarily put his pawn on f4. And now bishop d5, yeah, you're still equal. Bishop f3, and then you traded, okay? King takes. And now, how do we lose this ending? You centralized your king. You also have a very strong plan here with rook d5. Rook d5, rook a5. But I'm not going to criticize this move, of course. Probably Lafang should play rook c1 now. With the draw, the likely result. And now you got a little dogmatic. But I think it's okay. Now he finds rook c1. Now you find king d6. Now you're still better. And then why are you playing this move? What is he threatening? Maybe like rook c5. So the most important rule of endgames is to play actively. So I think you should play here. Give your rook mobility. If he plays this, you can be the first one to penetrate. Or you could play maybe induce a weakness with rook e4, but I think this is fine. Okay, taskbar, get the freaking out of here. So, how to lose an equal endgame by Sun Prism. Rook d7, allowing him to penetrate down here with this. Okay, you're lucky he didn't play that right away, because clearly that's the most active move. In fact, actually, maybe this is even better. You know? Still, I think you're fine. You could play rook c7. King and pawn in game is better for black. So he goes here, g3, rook c7, yes. Yes, and this is a bad plan. c5 he can't maintain, but e5 he can. And if you take, you're lost. So he does nothing. He does nothing. He does this, and this is not nothing because he restricts you. b6, and now it should be a draw. After a5, again, you should really try to play as actively as possible. Taking and then get your own rook active would be, from my perspective, this is probably the best plan. Takes, rook somewhere, rook down, rook takes a5, and then just start harassing him in every way possible. Rather than defending passively with something like rook c7. Check. Check. This should be a draw. It's still a draw, but look how passively you're playing. You're like passively defending your pawn with your rook. Now you're retreating your king backward. And you're still probably drawing. And now you left the open file with the rook. The rook is quite active here. But I think the first priority is to prevent him from coming down on the 7th, so you need to play like king d6. King d6, and if he plays a6, you go down and you get behind that pawn. So I don't think you can get away with that. King d6 is fine. But rook d6, look at your rook, bro. Now your rook is like very immobile. A b6, and this is an interesting question. Which way should you take? Well, pawn takes is okay if you go into a king and pawn endgame, or not. Yeah, just look at your rook. So now you have to find a really, really good move. I don't know if b5 is good enough. Because b5 king d4, like you're getting close to being lost now. See, the problem is if you go here, he has king d4, king c4, and your rook is completely immobilized. You immobilize your own rook. Well, he helped you a little bit. This is terrible, but what are you supposed to do? All right. This is disaster. Can we look at b5? Wow, there's only one move that holds here. Well, it's already, I don't like the last move. I don't like the last move after d5, rook d7. So I thought that the move you should play is b5, but I wasn't sure if this was good enough to hold. Computer thinks it's drawing easily. Computer has depth 38 or some shit. But honestly, it would be foolish to assume that white isn't better here. You know, the computer evaluation is bullshit for a human being. You know, if you put this position down on a game where it's like 1600s playing each other, white is going to win way more than black. You can call it what you want, but I say that white is better, you know, regardless of the 0.0 engine evaluation. Objectively, in a practical game, white is better because his centralized king and passed pawn easily outweigh your outside passed pawn. He's too strong, you know. This is only if you defend perfectly. It's a draw. But I think the b5 is the best chance. You know, generally you want to get b5, get the rook behind the passed pawn and start pushing. Or at least get your rook active. So how do we lose this? On time. You know, he's like a bullet player. But this is a disaster. You can see visually that this is a disaster. Your king is out of the center. And you played too passively. And now you're lost. Okay. Good lesson. So, Mr. Ginger. I hope he's still here. Mr. Ginger. Ah, c5. Very interesting. It's an unusual thing to see this move from a player who's rated 1500. You will call me sire. You shall not call me sir. You were timed out for calling me sir. If you feel the inclination to call me sire, you shall call me sire, but sir is not allowed. D5 is good. This is the best move. Black plays knight f6. Okay, it's like a ready in reverse. Now, c4 is not necessarily the best. Okay, this depends on your personal preferences. I think personally that the Schmid-Benoni is better for white than like the normal Benoni. So you should play knight to c3. You know, it's interesting, if you look at the opening explorer, more people play c4 than knight c3 here. I think that's a matter of convenience. But most top grandmasters would lean toward playing knight c3. There's really no downside to knight c3, except for the fact that you're playing more of an e4 game here. This is a Schmid-Benoni, not a modern Benoni. But it's strange for me that the top 4 games are draws. Alright. Anyway, c4 is okay. It allows the Benko Gambit, you know. d6, knight c3, g6, e4 usually. There are not a lot of situations where you're not going to play e4. Maybe in the fianchetto type setups. Thanks, Sensei. Good to have you back with us. And the only other line where white won't play e4 would really be maybe sometimes when you play like bishop to g5. The bishop g5 Smyslov type of systems, sometimes it can be better not to play e4 but play e3. So in general, I wouldn't see like the advantage in playing knight f3 versus playing e4. That's the most important thing. So bishop g7 now e4, but now he has this possibility, which probably isn't that great. However, trading pieces as black in Benoni type positions tends to be a good idea. It would be better not to give him that option. Having said that, you have some options of your own. Now, without looking at the opening explorer, I want to stop and think about a couple of things here. Okay, one is queen b3 to attack b7. So after bishop takes f3, queen takes b7. Black has bishop takes g2, or just simply knight on bd7. This would amount to a pawn sacrifice, but white is objectively better. Very tricky to play though, because your king is opened up with the double pawns. So I don't recommend everyone to try this. But what you can do is queen a4 check. So there's a game. It's Peterson versus Igor from 1989. And there's another game, Garbarczyk versus Postny. So let's see what these guys did. Okay, Igor played queen d7, and he may or may not have been drunk at the time. Igor was in his prime in like 1989. Maybe slightly past his prime, but he was a very strong player. But he tended to play like when he was drunk sometimes. And it was definitely very hard to read his score sheet. So he beat Peterson? No, he drew Peterson with black. Alright. He played queen d7. You know, queen d7 is an interesting move. Because it offers two options. You can trade queens or exchange your bishop for knight on f3. White can't avoid both. Oh, Igor didn't play queen d7. Okay, it was Postny. Oh, he went on to win this game. Queen takes d7, knight f takes d7, Asterbate style. See what Gabarczyk does? He plays knight d2, and this is my idea. This was my idea. But very interesting position. This bishop is like in danger of getting trapped, but the exchange of queens didn't really help white. And Igor played knight fd7, knight d2, and there was no queen trade. The bishop looks kind of funky, no? How did he get away with this? He just plays like knight b6 later. So castles, h3, knight b6. This is bizarre. Queen c2, maybe he was drunk in this game. Bishop d7. Yeah, I don't like this for black. Igor didn't manage to exchange any pieces, you know? I think that Peterson is better here. So maybe Postini was right. The best move is queen d7. No easy solution to that, you know? Alright, anyway. So you played bishop d3, knight a6. Knight a6 is reasonable. And now a3, stopping knight b4, that's reasonable. Knight c7, and then h3. And then black is out of his mind. So you're playing the Benoni with black. You have less space. It's usually a dark square plan. So shouldn't bishop go to e2? Well, not necessarily. No, I mean I don't think so. It doesn't matter. There are different plans here. That's not really the. There's a good word for that in Hungarian, lényeg. Not really the point. Bishop b2 and bishop d3 are both possible, and there was, it's not necessary. You can take on f3 with the queen, but it should probably be bishop f3, queen f3, knight d7, and then white returns the queen back to d1. Astrobate gifting a tier 1 sub to Tarsal. No, bishop on e3, very rare in these type of lines, Sun Prism. So, thanks Astrobate. You gifted 3 subs to Saeed's, Tarsal, and ASMR Miyu. Where did that one? That just came through. Thank you, man. This is a major mistake by black. This is the problem. Now his knight has nowhere to go. What is his knight going to do? Go to h5 so it gets attacked by g4? Go to e8 so it can go to c7, which is already occupied? So this is the problem, man. I mean, why did the guy play bishop g4? To induce h3? No, you're supposed to trade pieces. This is the whole point. Of course, takes, knight d7. And then move the queen, castle, and it's a game. White has more space, and the 2 bishops, black has no weaknesses. And the possibility of maybe breaking with b5 or e6. Objectively, white is better. The computer here says the advantage is 0.6, which seems about right. But it's not easy to handle such positions, and oftentimes players with white, especially lower rated players, play very badly with the space advantage. They tend to overextend themselves. And that's why the Benoni is even playable at any level, you know. Forget about playing the Benoni against the computer, but bishop d7 is awful. Awful move. Bishop f4 is good. You can pull it back to h2 in some lines, to e3. Actually, you know, what Sun Prism was saying, it is true. You can place your bishop on e3. But like this. But this is better to provoke black. You know, I think even bishop g5 is not stupid. But bishop f4 is a good square. Bishop f4 actually prevents e6 because d6 is hanging in a lot of cases. Thank you, Sun Prism, with a donation. 300 bits. Bishop f4, knight h5. Mr. Ginger always plays like a master in these games he submits. Coincidence? Conspiracy theory? You know, here I'll show you a trick, though. A lot of cases, and too much London system can cause people to play bishop h2, when oftentimes this is better. The advantage of this is that this bishop kind of has like range, you know, in like both directions. I feel like sometimes on h2 it gets shut out, where its play is limited. In either case, like, it's vital that you keep f4 protected, so his knight can't come in here. But after knight h5, which is a bad move, by the way, I think this is key to keep pressure on d6 and to think about possibilities of g4. Now black commits, you know, positional hiri-kiri with bishop takes c3. This is not really the best Gingy Indian for black. Black has serious problems. This bishop is restricted. I guess if I'm black here, and you want me to play this game, he's got to stop you from playing e5. So it's pretty much no-brainer at this point. It looks like black has to play f6. This is a really, really sick-looking move, but the thing is, it's not going to last. I don't think it's going to hold up in the long run. Because eventually, you'll probably be able to play f4 and e5. You'll have to move the knight first, and then you'll eventually play for f4 and e5 and break him down. But the bottom line is, like, bishop takes c3 is a very poor move. C-pawn is not weak. Wrong. Asri, did the tree make a sound when it fell in the forest? No, what's weak is this. This is what's weak. Black's whole freaking kingside without a dark square bishop. That's what's weak, not the c-pawn. Maybe you're kidding. Alright, castles, g4. Might be better to go to g7. Oh, and some prism talking about f5. Dude, that's not normally a bad idea in the Gingy Indian. But since this isn't really a Gingy Indian, black is like destroyed after e5. There's no saving this. Black is just completely destroyed. He's absolutely crushed. White's control and domination of the center is just devastating. Like, best case scenario, I'll only do this, and your bishop's going back to c8, and the board has been cut in half by the pawn chain from hell. And you don't have a queen because it's like on the other side of the fence. Yeah, imagine if you had private lessons with Gingy, how great you would be. Bishop takes c3. You could turn out to be a complete loser. Bishop takes c3. B takes c. Castles. g4. Knight f6. e5. Knight fe8. Queen e2. Yeah, this is all standard. And like, white can castle when he wants to. There's no rush. He's trying to stop you from invading. It's still not too late for white to screw this up. I mean, like, castling queenside, probably not a good idea. What would Karpov do, you know? Is it worth considering playing a4? Hey, why don't we like restrict black on the queen side while we're at it? Because his only chance is to play b5. I was just thinking. This guy's like literally only chance is to play b5, which is so ironic, right? It doesn't even help him. I mean, if he plays b5, the funny thing is like you have an extra c pawn. You just like take and then blast him out of there, or just shut down his other piece with like c4. This is hopeless for black. I don't know about queen f4. Not really sure what that does. Yeah, I think you should handle this position in a more controlled way. So I understand now. You played queen f4 with the idea of h4, but you have a winning position already. Do you know the only two good moves for white in the Jinji? The only two good moves for white? What, like f3 and h4? Like the standard moves? So, queen f4, b5. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're going too crazy. Like, you could just castle. But, like I said, I mean, I think the important thing is to understand, like, you don't have to go zombie apocalypse here to win the position necessarily. Also, maybe keeping the rook here is interesting. It's true. But I like just shutting him down with a4. What is Shereshevsky's rule about the endgame? Do not rush. I told this guy, Mr. Ginger, that I don't like being rushed. I played a few Gingy Indians from both colors. If you play a4, like, what is black going to do? You know, it's a total disaster. What does he do after a4? Is he going to, like, illegally play queen a5 and then take your pawn on a4 with his bishop or something? It's like impossible to find a move for black in this position. This is the worst position I've ever seen. Black is literally like in Zugzwang, almost. If he tries to play a6, you play a5. Maybe his only chance is like b6, a6, you know, the b6, a6 type of thing, but it takes forever. Okay. Anyway, so you tried to play queen f4 for h4, which is probably good enough. The problem is now, like, what about this? Your d5 is in danger. You would have to recapture, and then he can swap pieces with something like bishop b5. It's probably too slow, but at least it's a chance, you know. Plays queen c8, hitting this, and now d takes e5, which is fine. Take with the knight. Black plays the unbelievable e6. Hey, is there time for another game? Alright, one more. Guys, did I say something about the dark square complex around the black king? I remember mentioning something about that. There was something about, like, these squares being weak. I don't think black got that memo. You know, you don't have a dark square bishop and you just played e6. I was expecting him to play f6, actually. You're here for the content. Hello, mods. Uh-oh. Hello, y'all. Hey, mod. Hey, mod! Yeah, e6 is, well, dude, your king is on e1. And castling queenside, I don't recommend, so I think you're going to have to play, like, king f1 if anything starts opening up here. You got to remember that your own king is open. This is nice, but all right. What do we have exactly? Check. King G8. I was thinking you had this. But there just doesn't seem to be a way like to get in there, huh? So you take. I'm getting kind of freaked out by that rook attacking us this way. And that's what happened. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like this game went off the rails a little bit. Like you had everything under control, and then you got a little carried away. I no longer really like fully understand what's happening here. Maybe you underestimated F takes. If you won this game quickly, you were lucky. I mean, this guy missed something. This is a sneaky move. Takes, just leaving his bishop hanging and with the threat of queens to e7 check. I'm definitely reporting my opponent to the site, man, after this. Just when it looked like white was like going off the rails, he has everything completely under control. That's pretty suspicious. He missed something. But it looks good for you. C takes, check. What's the problem? Like you have nothing after king g8? But you still have knight takes d7. Maybe it's not enough. Knight takes d7 is no good for some reason. What, d2 check? Rook f7. Oh no. So this is actually a blunder. Wow. Yeah, so you did let it get off the rails. Well, I mean, I'll be honest, like I would never play queen takes c5 unless I was sure about it. It could be like a winning move, but you have to calculate. The normal thing to do would be move the bishop. This was too much. And now check, and the guy, for some reason that's hard to understand, decided to put his king out on h6. I mean, you have a choice between king h8, which obviously like loses immediately to mate in 1, rook f7, which loses pretty immediately, king h6, which looks extremely dangerous and is a draw at best, and then king g8. And king g8 is by far the natural move. The question is, like, why would you not play king g8? And the only thing I come up with was like what I was talking about, but like if you miss rook f7, you know, this is covered. There's nothing there. So white just went too far. Leave your king in the center, you know, until move 25 on the white side of the Benoni, and something bad happens, you know, no surprise. I think you went you went too far. Queen e7 check, but this is a really lucky break. So now it's like mate in 2. This is actually, I think, a cuter way to win. Rather than taking material, we can mate him in 2. Bishop f4 check. Pretty bad move, king h6. g5 is mate in 1. And rook takes f4 is rook h1, which maybe you missed. And that's mate. Anyway, interesting game. Okay, thanks for sharing, guys. Next is... Rich will save for next. Next is Asterbait. What's up? Asterbait, troublemaker. Thanks, guys, for your donation. No, seriously, thanks for the donations. Some of you have supported the stream. For those of you that have supported the stream recently, I appreciate it. We're trying to to save money to go to a number of tournaments. The World Team Championship is in Krakow is definite, July 1st, and that's the fundraiser. The Streamlabs donation bar. I want to play, and I'm registered to play the Budapest Spring Festival in the end of May, but I have some complications involving like moving. So I'd like to play end of May, Budapest Spring Festival. If moving becomes an issue or I have some problems, I might have to like withdraw. But hopefully with your support, and if things go according to plan, because it's a really good tournament. Really, really good tournament. And yeah. So, Mr. Ginger, when you become a CEO of a major Indian corporation or whatever, you can start donating large amounts of money to the stream. Alright, Kakatiri. Oh, Kakatiri ended a game. Submitted a game. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Alright, get PGN. Get PGN rapid game. Rated rapid game. Wow, that's a lot of analysis. Copy. Alright. Alright, add a new chapter. Oops. Paste. Alright, guys. So Asturbate's up next. Kakatiri, Mr. Move 11. But again, I do appreciate anyone who donates to the stream. Any money like put forth to the stream will be used to offset my costs for playing in tournaments. You think your opponent was a cheat? Great. Theorist versus Kakatiri. Actually, we're supposed to do Arsenal first. I mean, Asturbate. Yeah. Asturbate first. Alright, warm up with Asturbate. So, Asturbate. I gotta check something. Alright. I need glasses. So, whatever. Okay, Asturbate, let's see what you got for us. I haven't seen this one yet. It was your what? It was your last win of the week. Knight of 3, e6, b3. But you got a clear diagonal here. You know, whereas I said, like, I don't really like how to say, I don't necessarily like doing b3 when the opponent starts to set up like this wall. Whereas against e6, b3, you know, it kind of makes sense because this is an open diagonal. b3, knight f6, bishop b2, bishop e7. Okay, e3, castle. All normal moves. And now the most common move is d4. Well, you know, you have a number of options here. d4, c4, bishop e2, which is kind of passive, and then g3. Some creative players have actually played rook g1 in this position. The only thing that's surprising about that for me is that it was played twice. Yeah. Feingold, like, stealing Emery Tate ideas, probably. This is like something that Emery would have played when he was, like, stoned. Some kind of IM tournament. Alright. Yeah, rook g1, okay, it's funny. It's a funny move, but it's not good, objectively. I mean, I will say, though, maybe there's some justification for rook g1 because the setup is so passive by black. So if you do castles and white plays rook g1, I'd like to see, like, you know, Feingold play someone really solid here. He can beat an aging Angelo Young, maybe. But, yeah, I mean, this is funny, but I don't think it's serious, you know. Don't believe Feingold. For a fast game, that's reasonable. C4 is absolutely good. D4 blocks the bishop, but it's a standard Koldanowski system after bishop D3. No, this is also passive. But I was going to suggest the other possibility is there's no games here, but I mean G3 is always okay. Like, you can always play a double fianchetto. It's not a bad move. All right. So C4, C5, now symmetrical English, knight C3 behind the pawn. Arthur Bisguy versus Nick DeFermian. Wow. And Arthur beat him. He was a young master in 1981. Okay, A6 now. Black's playing for B5 possibly. It's not a bad idea, I guess. Bishop D3. Asprey can't resist. Well, I mean, for me, it's like Feingold stealing Emery Tate's Rook G1 type ideas, or Bishop D3. They're both coffee house type of style chess. You can do this kind of thing where you're like flipping the knight over. Get the bishop open, the other bishop open. But black should be asking like some questions in the center here. Especially after bishop D3. What's black's best move? Not a difficult question. I mean, to be honest with you, I thought he might be considering playing a wing gambit type of thing here with B5. And frankly, you know, no, Queen C2 is a normal move. You might see me play like this. The problem is that black should answer in the center, and A6 a little bit slow, still a useful move. Well, white's going to have to decide what to do. You know, white is going to have to probably commit to playing D4. Since I've played this type of position a lot. A6 works out to being like a pretty useful move in this type of semi-tower structure. And our queen on C2 can end up being a little bit of a vulnerability. In a case where maybe the C file opens up. But it's never easy to say. You know, I mean, like, frankly, like, the safest thing to do is probably just like bishop E2 and then play for D4. So I say like bishop E2, D5, takes, D4. Here's a Vertitic Attila. He's a Hungarian player. His rating just keeps going up. No, he never plays in any real tournaments. He has a amazing record. Knight C6. Yeah, okay. Normal position. Alright, so bishop D3, he should punish you with D5. There's no more screwing around, Masturbate. You tell me what you're going to do about this. He's not going to sit there while you slowly play bishop B1 and queen C2 and knight E2 and all this nonsense. Have a good night. No. No, move 11. It's not have a good night. It's have a good night. This is a chess stream, bro. Get thematic. Be thematic. Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't play to open it up, you kind of get away with this maneuvering. You know, again, d5 is extremely strong here. Aspie, you're in trouble. You're in trouble already in this position because the guy's got multiple ways of using his leverage. He can either push or take depending on the situation, or possibly even b5. So if he had played smartly, you would have been in trouble. Bishop d3 is a bad move. But now he plays too slowly. b6 is too slow. Rook c1, bishop b7, bishop b1. He wasted some time, you know, doing just routine moves. And now obviously he should play d5. But Aspie has some ideas here. You know, now he's got some ideas. I mean, it looks like pawn takes, this type of thing. And the sort of fishing pole attack can be answered by a very, like, cold-blooded central push. You know, who knows? I mean, maybe this isn't that bad for white. But I definitely don't like what black did here. I guess with h6 he saw knight g5 on the wall. Maybe it's not a bad move. He's preempting knight g5. This is a smart guy, you know. He actually saw knight g5 in advance. So knight e4, bishop e4, and now black hesitates again. So I would say black has a number of good moves. Maybe bishop f6, maybe d5. If d5, what do you do? Black unfortunately doesn't play the most testing moves. This is critical. This denying your bishop on b2 is also critical. One of those moves must be played, but instead he does this, like, passive move. And bishop e1. You're thinking about f5. Wow. Yeah, f5 is also an option. Yeah, okay. f5 is not a bad suggestion. I mean, I considered it. I considered it a little bit, like, yeah, f5 is probably good. f5, we have to retreat. But again, you know, this idea is going to be something. We can only make so many pawn moves. So if you play f5 and d5, I don't know, you know. I mean, f5 is inherently riskier than playing d5. And f5, we don't really have like a follow-up. Whereas with d5, it's more than just, you know, a one-trick pony. It's also involving d4. So if I take, and you move your bishop, I can pretty much just play this like blindly. I don't need to calculate, you know. I'm just going to play d4. Yes, you have a one-move shot. I'll play g6. And now I don't know. You know, I'm not really afraid. I have faith in black's position. h4, threatening h5. And if h5, g4, but this is hovering over the position. I mean, something about white's position is a little bit dodgy. Let's see. Yeah, black is slightly better. So this is a good, solid way for black to play. Whereas with f5, you know, it's good, you grab some space, but also it's not clear what your follow-up is. You don't really want to play f5, f4, obviously. That could be serious. And now d5 and f5, maybe. But again, a lot of weaknesses. So I think if you play f5, what's your continuation? Maybe like bishop f6? Yeah, okay. Okay. I'm a Croatian. I am. Okay. Bishop b1, bishop f6, d4. Aha! Now who's making the central strike? Nice move. Oh, wow. So, pawn takes pawn. And obviously, like, you can't simply take back with a knight necessarily because of the danger of this file here. So, this is the normal move. And in that case, black will probably play d5. Again, we'll have queen d3, g6, etc., etc. A strategic game. You know, here, take with a knight, trading pieces, not so ambitious. But, you know, the bigger question is, like, what happens on this? Because I'm not sure that the G file really does anything. Wait, might have something. Let's say, like, queen h5. But there's not enough pieces left, really, for white to generate serious threats. So we don't want to do that. I think Astrobate should just take back with the pawn. But he found an interesting move, an in-between move with queen d3. A little sneak threat. Black saw it. And now, here we are. This is a little different now. You know, I mean, sacking the g-pawn could actually be strong. You know, Astrobate, that's something you should consider. Like trying to swindle your opponent. Takes, hope he takes here. Hope chess. Springs eternal. Rook g1. Goes back. And then whammo. Takes. Check. Bishop g7. I don't know if you're winning or not. It may only be a draw. But it certainly looks good. Yeah. Yeah, this is strong. King f7. Bishop g6 check. Jeez. Somebody's going for a walk. Oh, bishop h5. Because on this you have e5. So move 11 suggested just simply here. Yeah, white's probably winning. Well, it's not clear. Wow. No, d5 check is important to shut down bishop e4. Then you can play bishop h5. Close. So the answer is a combination of our ideas, move 11. Good job. All right. Astrobate, though, just goes totally like crazy now. This move is a disaster. This move, your next move is an unmitigated disaster. It's an unmitigated disaster. You have to recapture this pawn. I think, and I prefer playing like h4 or something to the move you played. Like, honestly. That's bad too, though. Like h4 takes, bishop takes b2, black's just much better. You need to recapture. Either with the pawn or with the knight. But instead he went nuts. This is terrible. Because you have no attack now. The diagonal shut down. And black can just simply play e5. You don't have anything now. You're not going anywhere, Wendy. Go check out the snowcat. Check it out. It was a mouse slip. Oh, now we learn it was a mouse slip. So you meant to take, and you mouse slipped e4. Oh my god, it was a mouse slip. You didn't mouse slip knight to e4. You must have mouse slipped e takes d4 then. It means you intended to recapture. So e4 is a disaster. And his move is not as good, because now we get our pawn back. An on purpose mouse slip. Now the position looks pretty close. But we have another friend who doesn't like the castle with white. Uber driver would not approve. Yeah, queen g5 is a feisty move. I just got a message. Mr. Ginger sending me next week's game. I thought he had to go to bed. He's so tired, he has to send us to next week's game. Alright. Queen g5. Right. Well, I mean, normally black would play some kind of sensible move here, right? What are the sensible moves? Queen c7. Yeah, maybe d6. But whatever they include, maybe queen e7. This is provocative. Setting up queen takes, bishop takes e4. Whatever he does, yeah, I guess he really wants to be first next time, sir. What's up, Mr. Coffee? So queen g5. Okay. Okay. I get it. He's hitting your rook, but he's like forcing you to make a constructive move. So queen g5 is a little bit of hope chess. You'll also have f4 with tempo at a later date. It's really, sophisticated hope chess. Look at Asterbait Meta's match. They've played 20 moves, and both of them have used like 1 minute for the whole game. The guy is like the Hispanic Asterbait. Alright, no, he was far more solid than Asterbait. Now, f5, whoa, what is that about, right? Guy who started out rather solid, now he's like Mr. Cheapo. Okay, f5 is a good move, except the fact that d7 is hanging. Britannia. Wow, it reminds me of, what was that? Might and Magic? No, what was that? What was that game? There was an old multiplayer game, Ultima Online. The first multiplayer, like video game, massively multiplayer role-playing game or whatever. From like 2000 or 1999. F5 is a nice move, but I mean, you have queen takes c7. So this is hitting with check. Mr. Ginger's still here. Alright, go to bed. You have school tomorrow. Rook f c8. e6 hanging with check. That is a very strange move, right? The guy played queen g5, f5, and now he's like rook f c8. I think he's like busted. So his best move is probably something like, well, he's just busted. And what's there to do? Like rook f7? Rook f7, queen takes e6. Another one bites the dust. I mean, still okay. It's not so easy to finish him off for you. He could play f4. Maybe you have like e5, but you'll get mated. Anytime you play e5, you get mated. Still has some f3 crap. So, but this one makes no sense to me. And then this is Asterbait's game. Another pawn bites at us. Check. Here. And now. Sing it, don't swing it. Yeah, you must have been so tempted. I keep wanting to move this pawn. It's so brutal. You know, here's a situation, Aspate, where you have an interesting move like h4 to try to get him off your back. Like, if he takes here, you take here, but at the end of the day, I think it's a mistake. You know, he could just play like queen g4 or whatever. The best move for white is, well, I mean, rook d1 looks really strong. You really can't go wrong with that. f4 is probably strong. Maybe this is the way you should have done it. You could possibly preempt this maneuver. Play like an improved version. The problem in the game is after rook c3 he has f4. Which isn't fatal or anything, but I think it slows you down. And you manage to transfer. But that's my point. Like, he shouldn't allow that to happen. He could have stopped you by playing f4. And now you can just take on f5, and that's pretty crushing. It's really over after that. He loses everything. Phew. Mate in 2. Very good. Alright. Solid game, Masturbate. Solid game. Except for the bishop d3, a3. You're not allowed to do that anymore. Alright? No more bishop d3, a3, rook c1, bishop e1, queen c2. Nada, what's up? You're quiet. Alright, guys. How many games do we have left? We've got move 11, submission, Richie Smith, and Kakatiri. Alright. What are we going to do first? Move 11. What do you guys want? Move 11? Lubomir Kovalik versus Duncan Suttles. We're looking at like 70s chess, it looks like. These guys were strong before I was born. They're both rip. Kovalik just died like recently in the last couple of years. For the last, I don't know, 4 years, because I'm losing track of time. But it wasn't that long ago when Kovalik passed away. Maybe like around the start of the pandemic. I don't remember. In the last like 3 years. Suttles, I don't know. He was, I guess, gone for a long time. But Suttles was known as a very, he was Canadian, and he was known as a specialist in hypermodern openings, like the Pierce Modern. But he was popular with people like before my generation. So players who were like 10, 15 years my senior would talk about these guys, you know, because I didn't really like ever, I never met Kovalik, even though he was around. He wrote Lubomir was very strong, and he wrote a column for the Washington Post, once annotated one of my games in the Washington Post, and I don't remember which one it was. You could probably find it on microfiche. Kovalik, the stronger player by far among the two of them. Because Kovalik was from Slovakia, then immigrated to the United States and became a member of the U.S. team. And this game was played in Olympiad qualifying group 2. So that's weird. I didn't know they had like qualifying groups. That's weird. Olympiad qualifying group 2. So 1974, and they must have had a different format without simply one big tournament like it is now. This is Hogarden. This is Hogarden. Belgian beer. Don't ask me. It is wheat beer, yeah. It's a kind of wheat beer, but it's not. I don't think that it's like strictly. Yeah, I mean, I guess it is classical kind of wheat beer. All right, so the Subtles is playing black. It's the d4, d6, knight f3. See, first of all, they say it's a girl's drink. Oof. Oof. I live in Klingon. Off-planet territories. They tell me it's a girl's drink. We only drink Klingon blood here. Alright, Worf. But I mean, seriously, Kavalek with white. The only move that's like really aggressive against the Pirts is knight c3. So I mean, coming from me, and I'm like a lifetime classical Pirts player, it's just lamer to play knight f3. I mean, what can we say? You know, it's simply lamer. You block your f pawn, so there's no f3 or f4. Yeah, beer and whiskey. That's my Larry Christensen method. So knight f3, bishop g7. Actually, this is a professional move order too. Like bishop e2 isn't bad. Well, I mean, they're both grandmasters, but Kavalek was much stronger. So I think Subtles was a GM. I'm pretty sure. But not like a high-rated one. But Kavalek was extremely strong. Okay, knight f6, knight c3. Oh, maybe move 11 picked us out because of me. But I'll tell you, you know, a6 is like the Kraken that I'm playing. I had a game yesterday against some computer who was cheating in an online blitz game, and the guy just played perfectly, but he didn't commit to bishop. He didn't commit to bishop e2 early, and ended up playing like bishop c4 in this position. And it's more active. A6 is justified here. So what should white do? We have a4 and castles. Only 2 moves have ever been played. It's kind of funny. If like this is like probably the way I lost to Sebe in a rapid game where it was like he came 10 minutes late to a 12-minute game and I lost. No, this is the inspiration of the Kraken. A6 and the Pirts. This is sort of like where the Kraken was inspired from. I mean, I would imagine that white has limited options, but I mean, everything's on the table. Bishop f4 is probably not ridiculous. What else? Yeah, I mean, the problem is bishop e2. I think this a6 is especially good here. It's probably stronger against bishop e2 than like bishop d3 because the e4 pawn is not as well protected. On the other hand, like this bishop can come to f3 sometimes. So that's an interesting idea. So rather than play a4, probably white should castle. And if castles, I've looked at this. Rook e1. Rook e1 is an idea. If b5, now we have e5. When our main idea would be to play this, take with a knight, and then have bishop f3. That seems like the best. This is interesting. So on d5, knight e5, the problem is black doesn't have to play b5. The question is, does black have a good move or not? Walter Brown versus Carsten Hoy, 1986. Grossbader versus Lutz. Yeah, it's probably World Junior or Bundesliga. This is also interesting. Like, black couldn't decide on which move to play. Knight fd7. It's a tough move to find. Knight fd7. Counterintuitive. If white plays e5 there. So, okay. White plays a4. This is exactly like my game with Sebe, where I lost with 12 minutes against 2. Exact same position. So, I don't remember if Attila played b6 or castles, but probably castle, 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 castle. So this is our exact position. I lost this position with like 2 to 12 time odds with white. The thing is, I don't remember what I played now. It was years ago. I don't remember if I played like e5 or if I played rook e1 or h3 or what. The rook e1 seems very logical to me. But the point is, after bishop b7, you're supposed to play e5, I thought. So there are even some recent games, but black has a very good score here. Genghis Khan. Be funny if your name was like Genghis or Genghis. What if your name was Genghis and your parents named you Genghis? You'd be Genghis. Yeah, bishop g4 is boring. a6 is revolutionary. It changed black's chances in these variations. Bishop g4 is just playing for a draw. This type of idea revolutionary for black in these lines. b6 and a6. It's much more aggressive and interesting. So here it looks like Havlicek, maybe he has trouble constructing a plan after this. The critical question to me, in my mind, bishop f1, of course this is possible. That might be what I did against Sebe, I don't know. We had something like this, and it was complicated and I lost. But I thought it was e5 we were supposed to play, and then take with a knight, with the idea of bishop f3. So check this out. Kulatz versus Duda. Gusena versus Tigran Petrosian, the cheater. And black has a good score. Denis Verduga versus David Strauss, 1977. I was just talking about David Strauss. I think he's still alive. I never met him. He was a California player. And he used to play on ICC years ago. Pretend he was Igor Ivanov. But apparently he's like British, and he was professor of architecture, no, a professor of statistics. Dude, Eric the Red, you're really deep, bro. David Strauss, this is a professor of statistics who was a very strong national master in California. There's a game, and I've also played Dennis Verduga, who's a master from Mexico. I lost against Verduga. But I always thought that David Strauss was like German or French or something. It turns out he was British. But I don't know the California chess scene too well. He used to play on ICC, and he would like put in his finger notes that he was Igor from Southern California. I think he's an IM, actually. And he said his name is Igor, I'm from Southern California, and I don't speak much English. It was like, no one knew it was really David Strauss until Igor died. But apparently David Strauss has a very boring style, although I wouldn't call this boring. This is quite interesting. So knight fd7 rears its head again. Is that the best move? No. So, okay. You got to have a pretty deep home laboratory to know that this is the move, right? Rook a7. Dude, Eric the Red, you're like the master of obvious questions. Well, this rook defends the bishop, you know, and so we're actually anticipating White's plan of bishop f3. I guess. It may not be the best move, though. Who's to say it's the best move? By the way, like, it's ranked according to the number of games, number of frequency. But when there's a tie, does it go alphabetical, Mr. Coffee? You're the statistics guy. So is that why like rook a7 is before e6? I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting question, right? In any case, Kovalik played bishop c4, so it's becoming basically like a kind of half hippo. Black plays e6. And I've had a hell of a time like handling this type of position with White. You know, I don't really know what to do. You know, so that's why I think like bishop c4 is probably maybe not so great. What are we gonna do? Like, I've seen games like this, like h4 on the king side, c4, a4, bishop c4, h4, bishop f4. It's like symmetrical. Knight on bd7, and now it's Jonathan Spielman versus Spassky, 1988. Spassky, queen d2. Wow. Subtles went crazy here with b5. My thinking would... You'd wonder, like, why is b5 possible now? So Subtle's idea is to undermine e4, and he figures, like, with the queen off of the rook, White will have to recapture on the a file with the rook, and then we can draw White away from the e4 pawn. Thus b5 is possible. My thing with Black would be, I would kind of be wanting to play for e5, honestly, but this position is not so easy. Now, I was thinking another thing about rook a7. Even though this is kind of abstract, he better still be alive. Queen a8. It's refreshing to me to know that some of the people who are older than me are still alive, Eric the Red. That means I'm not the oldest chess player who's still alive, which is always a good thing. Rook a7, Queen e8, if you're really a fan of Ricard Reti and hyper... Wait, who are you talking about? Oh, Spassky. Yeah, of course. I thought you were talking about like Jonathan Spielman. Considerably younger than Spassky, yeah. No, everyone thinks Spassky's dead. Yeah, he's still alive. A takes b5, a takes b5, rook takes a8, queen takes a8, bishop takes b5. This is just a blatant miscalculation? No. So this is all based on tactics. But I wouldn't want to do this. Giving out the bishop for knight? Damn. Wow, so Subtle sacked... He actually sacked a rook, 2 pieces for rook, in order to play for some kind of threats on the back rank. Damn. But there's a secondary like threat, which is very, very effective. He comes back and traps the bishop on d7. So the key is to get rook a8 in, stop bishop a4, cut the bishop off from retreating there, and then you cut the bishop off from retreating to c6 and b5. With queen b7, then you're trapping the bishop at d7. Very likely, like, Kovalik missed this idea. And I found that in most cases, when I miss something, that's where I really start to lose my mind, you know. You start to self-doubt when you miss something. And then you make the second blunder that's, like, fatal. What can White possibly do here to stay in the game? He plays the most obvious move possible. With d5. But maybe there are other options. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I never would have found the computer suggestion of b4. I'm playing that like literally 0% of the time, dude. There's a 0% chance I find that move. I was thinking like queen c3, which is a, well, maybe not the bad move. You know, obviously ways of sacking on e6. But the engine's move is b4. There's literally no way I find that move. But it looks like the game is still close. You know, no matter what White does. But this is really, really surprising. So Settles, I never studied his games. You can see the ratings there. I'll just tell you this, Eric the Red. Like in 1974, 26-25 was probably top 10 in the world, you know. I'm going to go on a limb and say that. It was probably top 10, honestly. I mean, if it wasn't, it was damn close. This must have been like Kovalik highest rating or very close to it. And Duncan Suttles was like average rated, 24.55. Kovalik, he like retired early. I mean, I started playing tournaments in like 1986. And Kovalik, I mean, I had the feeling, you get the feeling like he must have had another job outside of chess or something. I mean, why did he live in Washington, D.C.? Yeah, I mean, Mr. Coffee, but I mean, Fischer was like he was like an anomaly, you know. Karpov, Mikhail Tal was like 2650 or something. Okay, Tal I think might have reached 2700, but not too many people did. Let's just put it that way. It's not like today where everybody's 2700. In those days, in 1974, 2625 was really, really high up. Anyway, it looks like Suttles is very tactically oriented. He's calculating. This is a surprising move. E5. You're like, what? I can't believe that. E5? You were going to play E5? I spent the last like few minutes like wondering like which way black would take the pawn on D5, literally. You got to be imagined. You're sitting there. You're like, you're Kovalik. B2's hanging. Your bishop's almost trapped. You play D5. You're threatening bishop C6. Maybe. Turns out you're not really threatening bishop C6 because of rook A1 check. But the last move you expect is like E5. And the thing that's like disturbing about this is like the whole point was like we thought black was trying to trap our bishop at D7. I thought the whole thing was like trapping our bishop at D7. Now you're not trapping our bishop at D7. You're doing something else entirely. So suddenly, boom. Never a good idea to trade off the bad bishop in the Pirt's defense. Like the time I did it against Vadim Milov. I learned my lesson. When you play the move bishop h6 and you have a bad feeling about it, and then you realize there's no other place to put your bishop, that's a bad sign. I like put my bishop on h6 and I was like, you know what, I'm like trading this guy's bad bishop off. And that's like a fundamentally like dumb thing to do. And then I was like, oh well, I have nowhere else to put it now, so I'll just play it with confidence. Alright, queen takes b2, h5, rook a1 check. You know, so at the end of the day, I mean, it's material balance, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have a pawn. We have a rook for 2 pieces. Normally, the computer like would definitely prefer the 2 pieces. Thanks for following. Thanks for your donation of $8 million. Thanks for following Edison 1587. Normally, the computer would prefer white in this type of scenario. Yeah, it says it's equal. I mean, black's got to be happy with this exchange of dark square bishops, though, if he can get it. Why is e5? I don't know. You know, I mean, I think e5 is the most amazing move of the game, honestly, because you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, I mean, I'm just not sure like which way to take on d5. That's what I don't get. I was sitting there thinking like, well, should I take with the queen and go into the ending, or play pawn takes? Now let's say, for example, I don't know, Suttles decides to play pawn takes, okay? The bishop's never going to get trapped. It can come back to like h3. But it's hard for black to like push these pawns because like one of them falls, like d6 will fall. Say I play c3. This actually looks pretty good for black. I mean, you have like rook a2. I don't like the look of that for white. I mean, white needs a better move immediately. No, I can tell you, like, assuredly, move 11. I would not have played e5. I would have been interested in getting a pawn, a big central pawn like that. So apparently, like, b3 is critical. Because c3 is bad because of rook a2, like I was talking about. This is important that you don't play c3, you play b3. I guess the moral of the story is that they're doubled pawns. Deviled pawns. At the end of the day, you know, they're doubled pawns. Double pawns aren't as good as healthy pawns, you know. But the game is up for grabs. You know, I thought e5 was a surprising move, and the problem is, like, Kavalek doesn't want to trade the bad bishop. But on the other hand, it's not necessarily going to remain a bad bishop. I could push e4, and it suddenly pops back into the game. It's like a temporary bad bishop. But I think what we're heading toward here is a situation where if the queens get exchanged, the rook is going to be more easier to play with. Or else white might get mated. And now h6 is not possible. So he has to exchange or take. What's up with exchanging? Is white really losing here? Losing? How bad is e4? Probably nothing. No, seriously, is white really losing here? Is rook d1 a problem? Let's say take. I mean, I'm threatening this. I'm still not convinced white is losing. He played this. And now black goes for the queen exchange. Now h6 and then a great move, king f6. This is like deserving of an exclamation. But I guess it's not so hard to find. And now you had to play queen takes c1, rook takes c1, but it looks very grim for white. I think grim is an understatement. It's not like Kavalek blundered. I mean, he seriously figured this is probably lost. So it's not an option. So thus c4 was like desperation. Queen d2, knight d2, and then, wow. Oops. You know what's interesting? How Subtle took care with his pawn structure. At the end of the day, he played aggressively, but never ever weakened his pawn chains. So at the end of the day, he has these very solid structures that are like untouchable. And the bishop at h3 is like hopeless. Now you would anticipate this game probably at time pressure. So normally when you like look at old games like this, this is 1974, standard is like 40 moves. So sometimes they had 30 move time controls, like in New York Open once. I played a 30 move time control. It freaked me out. But the standard is 40. I expect when I see a game like this that if you see the moves between, like, if it's close between move 30 and move 40, then the chances are that both sides were in time pressure. So around here, like rook a7 is sort of a surprising move. Looks like he's anticipating knight e8 check and maybe trying to bring his king back. And it looks like the knight might actually get trapped. This knight has, you know, limited squares. Now it's not trapped. It's not trapped, and black has 4 pawns against 2. You got to consider f3 here. By the way, he's probably lost. It's almost like he's down a piece. Like, these 2 pieces aren't worth 2 pieces. They're maybe worth 1. Like, the way they're in there. Guerrilla structure. They're worth 1 piece max. I mean, his knight is awkward and his bishop is blocked by his own pawns. But this is kind of a very standard story. It's a very common thing that the rook outplays the 2 pieces in an ending, because they're just too hard to coordinate with. And Kavala could be the best player in the world and still not be able to defend such a position. It's not at all surprising he lost. Now the pawns are just overrunning him. Alright. Yeah, nice game. Thanks, Move 11. That was interesting. So next we got Kakatiri versus Theorist, who may or may not be a dishonest cheat. What do we got? Knight f3, d5, c4, knight f6. Alright. So, first thing is like plus 60. The first thing is that like good players don't play this Marshall Gambit. So if the opponent plays great after this, yeah, I think it's kind of weird. Like other than Mamedyarov, like pretty much no good players between him and like Danny Kopech really played this. But I mean, on the other hand, like there are some online players who just don't know better, who are good outside the opening, who think it's okay. And maybe some freaky gambits and stuff. We'll see. Yeah, I looked at a Petrosian game with Move 11, and Petrosian didn't play c takes d. Wow, Nidog, good research. Wait. Those are the days, Nidog. Those are the days, bro. Yeah, you're a senior. Petrosian just played like d4 in the game in question or something. You got to take here. And then I have a teammate who did this, I think. But maybe it was different. Maybe it was like d4, not knight f3. Alright, anyway. So d4, g6. And you messed up. You messed up. e4 is good, but it's probably not the best move. Actually, no. This is a different position. I'm sorry. You didn't mess up. I'm sorry, you didn't mess up. This is alright. This is alright, but the question would be h3. Okay, the move order is weird. Why is the move order weird? I'm usually thinking knight f3. Yeah, no, you didn't mess up. I'm not sure, though. e4 or h3. The Encyclopedia of Chess Openings in the 80s said that you're supposed to play h3 here. No, the question is, who's right? The Opening Explorer on lichesss.org in 2024, or Encyclopedia of Chess Openings by Shahovsky Informador circa 1987? Because it's not clear to me like what black does after h3. The point is like this move was given like an exclamation in the Opening Explorer, in the informant or whatever encyclopedia. h3 wasn't just a move; it had like an exclamation next to it. I still remember, like remembering this. I never met any chess players with diapers, although I knew one who should have had diapers. But I suppose e4 is fine here. I think the important thing is that you don't play like this. Typically, d4, knight f6, c4, d5, c takes c, knight takes c. Now here, the original Marshall variation or whatever, I think the people who play e4, they should really probably just play knight f3. And now on g6, we'll transpose, right? h3. Having said that, e4 is probably good too. Honestly. No, dude. You're just too noob. Too noob, dude. He just stole someone else's name, man. I mean, there's a world champion named Petrosian. Yeah, I mean, I'm too old and you're too noob. Yeah, we don't mention that loser who cheated in online chess in the same sentence with the great world champion. It's a shame that he has the same name. We're talking about cheaters? Well, no. There was just an implication of a possibility. I'm not really talking about cheaters here. So I think h3 is good. That position, but the move order is different here. In this game, Cockatieri started with knight f3. So we get a transposition here. Takes, d4. Now black plays g6. So the question is, should you play e4 or h3? I think e4 is okay. There's no refutation of this. Now you have to play h3. This is the important thing. So you screwed up, and you gave him a chance to play bishop g4. There's the other Petrosian, ironically, showing up here. You shouldn't give him that opportunity. So after knight b6, you have to play h3. And then he has nothing better than bishop g7, and you do what you want to do. Knight c3. But it doesn't matter. He let you transpose. And now you have a good position. But the question is for me, okay? This has been played by Mamedyarov. And now we see there's a Mogsudlu game, and he lost. Because nobody else is Mamedyarov except for Mamedyarov. Black's only source of counterplay in these lines is f5, but it's extremely... It's just, it's kind of bullshit. I mean, is what it is. It's asking too much from life. For me, the most interesting question here is, should we put our bishop on e3, or should we put our other bishop on e2? And I actually, knowing that this is an idea, other thing I like is going here. You see, there's Lequan. He played bishop e3. And we have a lot of experience. I had a couple games against Lequan. And I highly recommend having a sweat towel at the board under your arms, because not only does it absorb sweat, but also it softens the, in case you have abrasions on your elbows, and if you want to concentrate by putting your elbows on the board. So Lequan is the towel master. You need one of those football towels or something, short and thin. And you put it down on the board. I'll do this in the summer now. I learned from Lequan. I'll bring a towel with me when I'm sweating on the way, when it's midsummer to a tournament, and then I put the towel down on the board so I have something to lean on with my elbows directly on the table. And by the time the game is over, it's dry, and you can throw it around your neck and go home. But I'm thinking we leave the bishop here, and then go queen d2 and go postal on this guy. Yeah, the point is, Snetseg, there is no place for the bishop to go with h3. There's no bishop g4, there's no bishop f5, there's no bishop b7 because there's a retarded knight on b6. So your only squares are d7 and e6. Of course h3 is, that's why it got an exclamation in the chess informant. Encyclopedia, whatever. So I think bishop e3, and then the idea would be possibly we go completely postal, and also stops c5 or discourages it at least. So I think this is better than bishop e2. Like this is like resign, dude. Forget about it. Jurich has a game there, man. Game over, dude. You got no counterplay after c6. You can't play a Grunfeld-like position and play c6. Why the hell did you give up the center? I mean, I would think like even this would be better than c6 probably. But the plan is queen d2 and even castles queenside and then annihilation. Just because you played h3 doesn't mean you promise not to play h4. Don't forget. You can annihilate them with queen d2. And I like it the best when I do like something like this. Sometimes they go here. And if they drop a knight on c4, I'll just hack it off. It's like, haha. So I'll even go like queen d2. And now what does black do? They go here. Typical noob, like, does knight c4. I'm like, oh, thank you. Okay, takes, nice knowing you. And then either bishop h6 or just like castles queenside with the idea of h4, h5 and like bishop h6. I mean, there's no way that black can survive this position. I have all of my pieces are on the dark squares, annihilating his king side, you know. So black has to be careful, you know, and I think f5 is the only way to go. But the question is like timing. If you play f5 right away, and the other thing is that queen d2 can prevent f4, which is kind of useful. Julia Schweiger. That's like Neidich's wife. There was somebody pretending to be Julia Schweiger. They came to my stream and they were like challenging me to play and commenting. I was thinking like, it can't be Neidich. I thought it was Neidich. Like, who else would be? Like, who else would make up a Julia Schweiger account? The only other possibility was another Israeli player. And it was a really strong player. So, it's like some joker, like, grandmaster from Israel pretending to be like Julia Schweiger to like troll Neidich. Or what? You know, I don't know. This happened around the time when I was playing in the World Senior, and I asked some people about it, and they were like, it can't be Neidich, he wouldn't do something like that. It was a really, really strong bullet player. But anyway, I think f5 is a reasonable try. It looks like this, though. Okay. This then we have a question. Okay, this is Lequam versus Maksulu. If you push too early, maybe black gets some play. So on knight c6, I guess we have to stop and think. Do you want to play queen d2, or do you want to go with like a kingside development? So check this out. Le Quang just played like positionally. No relation to Lafang, by the way. Knight a5 looks pretty crazy. That's Raymond Keane versus Fries Nielsen. Wow. The Penguin. So what did Mosulu do? Mosulu just busted the f5. Very interesting. Check. King h8. And then solid development with rook d1. Wow. This is a wild game between two pretty good players. And now queen b4, a6. It's like, Unbelievable position. Takes. F takes e4. See how black played f5 and he tries to get counterplay on the white squares. Apparently, it looks like it's almost working. But ultimately there's a threat here. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I mean, it looks like black sort of surviving. That was a weird move. You didn't expect, like, Muxulu to trade on c3. Take. What happens next? Queen d5, going for exchanges. c4, queen a5, rook d2, h6, knight e4. Oops, I lost the pawn. Bishop f5, knight c5, b6, c5. Oops, I lost another pawn. Anyway, you get the picture. Let's see the game itself now. So white plays bishop e2, which is fine, but it looks like its score is much worse. It's concerning that a number of players have lost here with white after bishop e2. So it looks like bishop e3 is more popular and has a better result. You played d5 maybe too early. Still, white should be okay, but it looks like you played this inaccurately. And there, everyone played knight a5. I don't think there's anything suspicious about your opponent yet. Now you played bishop f4, which is a new move, but reasonable. There's a problem with the diagonal and with b2. Or what? Knight f3 check, bishop f3, c6. So let me ask you a question here. What happens if you take on c6? What do we get? Like a static ending? The problem is the knight c4 is going to come in and wreck you later on. So that's what you did. Take. He doesn't exchange queens, castle, and then bishop b7. Yeah, bishop b7 is a weird move. I would expect black would be like zoning in on b2 by now. So like 100% maybe something based on knight c4. This is a very strange move. I wouldn't anticipate that. It doesn't look suspicious. Queen c2. Now this is ambitious. You're defending. You have some ideas here. Yeah. No, I think your opponent looks legit so far. You have rook d7. Rook d7. He's starting knight takes b2. So, okay. First of all, you've got no answer to this, really. Or do you? Like, at this point, you wimped out with pawn takes pawn. Like, if you thought your opponent was a computer, honestly, Kakatiri, like, if you thought your opponent was a computer for some reason before this, and you played that move because of that, like, that might be part of the problem. I was wondering, maybe you should play, like, queen b3. What would happen? He would take with the pawn, and then he breaks with, like, e6. And if you don't have this, you're basically, like, screw-delated. So it looks like it's not really an option there. Your other option is to castle. That's the safest thing to do. I don't think your pawn on d5 is really a weakness, so I don't think you should take on c6. I would say castle, let him take back with the pawn. It's like a Grunfeld. This pawn is not really a weakness. He can play maybe this, and at the end of the day, it's probably equal. He can blockade, but your pawn at d5 is a strength. It's not really a weakness. What's the eval here? Yeah, white is better. So I think this is a very subtle thing, what happened here. Like, you played d takes c6, and it's probably a mistake. Even though it looks like, oh, I have a better pawn structure. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because he ends up getting a lot of play against your b2 pawn, and you lose your strong point on d5, or your powerful, like, central pawn on d5. And that probably, like, gave me quality. And now after this, he doesn't even play the best moves necessarily. bb7. I mean, this move might have been a mistake. Maybe you should have gone to e2. You chose to put your queen on c2, when on e2 you would have stopped knight c4. And I mean, your only fear is really this with the cheapo, like bishop a6, but you're clearing that anyway. So if you'd stop to think about your moves a little bit more, this is too routine. And allowing knight c4 ended up giving him play. It looks like you had something. Knight a4. See, you can really easily improve your play in this game. You had knight a4 now. So what happened? Like, you kind of sat there and let it happen. Yeah, I don't know if he's. This just doesn't. It doesn't matter. The guy is clearly not a bad player, but it looked like he made a lot of mistakes. I mean, if you can come out of this with only losing a pawn, it's probably not so bad. To be honest, like, you made a lot of inaccuracies, and you've only lost a pawn, and I think you've still got good chances to draw. I would be optimistic here. I have good chances to draw. Your pieces are active. But let's see if he plays, like, perfectly, you know, from this point out in technical stage. So take. c5 is the 5th best move for black. Bishop h6. Bishop h6 is not necessarily a great move. You'd like him to play maybe bishop g7. It's not happening. You made a lot of concessions, and now he could trade and play bishop g7, and that's an engine line. And he doesn't do the engine line. It's counterintuitive. Trading looks scary, and he doesn't do it. So I don't think so. I think he was legit. He just played like a reasonable human game. Yeah, but I mean, you gotta stop, like, trading pieces when you're down material. This is like a really, really bad idea. Yeah, it doesn't look like you can defend, though. I mean, f2 is falling. But I had a game like that last month, where I lost one pawn. I had to sack the second pawn. What's the difference if you're down one pawn? You know, go ahead, sack the second pawn. But now you're, like, really, really passive. And you're close. So close. 1, 2, 3. You played g3, but that's ridiculously slow. Can you play this? c4, king f3, here, and you just want to move too slow. Yeah, it's lost. Alright, now tough game, but you can improve your play in a zillion ways in that game. Alright guys, what time is it? Time to go. No, I've got Arsenal fan Rich. Last game for tonight. Okay, here we are. Thanks, Kakatiri, for joining us. Nedog. Good analysis there, buddy. Ultra Brawler 785. Prony and Kantanaraseb. Thanks, guys, for following. Butters. Guys, let's donate. Come on. I need your help. We're going to try to play in some real chess tournaments. Help sponsor the stream. Please donate. And subscribe. Mark Littleton. Yeah, this is like the last move I'd really want to go for, but if it's your repertoire, it's your repertoire. Mr. Coffee has played e3. Move 11 remembers that Nafidov's last opponent was Butters. But Littleton is Arsenal fans' opponent. I love these names. 11. So, what other option do we have here? The old bishop f5. As I was telling Astrobay today, not a good idea to play e6 in the Chigorin. So okay, bishop g4 it is. Now, I imagine c4 and bb5. So he plays bb5. This is recommended by the Opening Explorer. It's interesting when you look at like their Laputian versus Brynel. Because Laputian is a French defense player, it's almost like White is playing a McCutcheon French in reverse. Geary has a game with White. Now c4, absolutely. That puts the maximum pressure on Black's position. And I just don't think we have time for something like a6. I mean, ultimately, we just don't. You know, it's like a6 takes, queen a4. And this is, you know, hit with check. So it's not a winnower where White has, or Black has time here for the a6 move. Apparently this is a move, but I think it's counterintuitive in a way. Because that's your good bishop. You know, I mean, you really don't want to just like trade it off for nothing. Mike Ivanov. That's funny. It's some American player. Yeah, so Arsenal fan plays 97. And so this is known. But that feels like objectively like the best. Keeping tension. And now White facing what is probably the critical move here. With White, you'd want to keep these knights, you know, if possible, we want to keep the knights redundant as long as possible. So what is Black threatening here? A6 becoming a threat. Is that what it's about? By defending this, you're essentially making a6 great again. So most players just simply exchanged. Black replaces the pawn on e5 or d5, and then now the bishop can move. Retreat, go back to a4, whatever. So that's probably what White should do. You know, oftentimes this is bad because you're like opening up the bishop, but the bishop's already open, so you're not like helping Black open his bishop on c8, like in a Queen's Gambit declined. I would rather keep the tension if I had my druthers with White, but what do you want him to play? You know, if you just develop, then is a6 a problem? That's the thing. Like, what are you going to do after a6? So that's the point. Why CD is best. So he plays queen a4 like he's freaking Alexander Alyakin. The problem is, I can just take on f3. Duh. Alyakin had a queen a4 game. It was a different position. In the knight f3 main line. It's a line. But anyway, this is dumb. You know, queen f3, rather queen a4 is dumb. You're going to take, Okay, he has to recapture. Now, you're freaking David Bronstein. Well, it's doubly dumb. Because he not only, like, allows his pawn structure to be doubled, he allows you to garner his bishop. So you garner his bishop. Bishop takes c6, knight takes c6. And everything's cool. Basically. Black has a better bishop. Reasonable control of the center. The king can castle either way. Bishop on c1 looks very sus. I would be concerned about that with white. That my bishop, better play a role here pretty soon. Yeah, white has thrown away his opening advantage. And now knight to c3, kind of routine developing move. Okay. And so what do we do? What do we do? My first instinct is to play bishop b4 because I don't mind, having like knight versus bad bishop endgame in the Chigorin. So this is probably, I'm looking at like where to put my bishop, here or here. Or possibly consider like g6 with the idea of bishop g7. The problem maybe like in some places like queen b3, attacking d5, and if you go here you get checked. Position's kind of weird. I did it again. Alright. Now, there doesn't seem to be time for g6, but you do have to watch the g file. But I'm thinking like the simple solution. Okay, first of all, you have this move, right? Which is very solid looking. Honestly, arse. Queen d7 is very solid. Again, are we going to run into trouble with that queen b3 thing? With the double attack? No. Like, you can always go bishop b4. So actually, maybe if you make me... It's ironic, because this queen looks like it has a good diagonal here. I think the engine will probably come up with, like, queen d7. Let's see. It likes bishop b4, my first suggestion. Black is better, and you have a whole bunch of good moves. But not this one. This move is not on the radar. Why? I think that Arsenal wanted to play actively, but he wanted to play actively like a little too much. Like you want to play maybe e5. Hey, it's the Albin counter gambit or something, But I can't play e5 because I'll just lose this pawn. So how could I play e5? And so my first thought is like, okay, takes, e5. I've got the initiative or something like that. But, I mean, at the end of the day, this pawn on d5 is really fundamentally important, And I think you just have to realize that you're good. Don't have to do anything fancy. Be patient. And the point will come to you. But the computer says my original suggestion is, okay, if the G file is a thing, you can always play G6. It's really not a big deal. And if he goes ahead and like forces you're going to take, and it's knight versus pawn, in the endgame, so he really shouldn't play A3, for example. He should play, like, I don't know, bishop. He should exchange pawns and play, like, bishop d2. Like, this kind of thing probably would happen. But imagine you get, this is like Chigorin's, like, wet dream position, Bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3. White has no attack. And his bishop sucks, and you're just slightly better. I mean, I think you can play this position. Maybe white will hold a draw, but black is better. The evaluation, -1 point something. Anyway, this is a fundamentally flawed move. Sorry, here. Taking on c4. Violating fundamental principles. Now Arsh is going to be like, I know I was violating fundamental principles, but Alright. Queen takes c4, and now knight b4. So he gets active, he goes for this. But it's a big air ball, you know, it looks like. White can castle. The computer says he should play king f1. Alright. Is castles that bad? Maybe. What about king e2 for that matter? I mean, is this such a bad move? You have some scary threats. Maybe b5, queen b3, c5. And if black, you know, if white takes, it's like check. Oops. That's not good. Alright. Just remember, you fundamentally traded off your strong point on d5. You need something good. White plays this move, which is really weird. And now, Arsenal could play c5 here. But maybe it's just not enough. I mean, for example, if you really want to be aggressive, c5. Takes, and knight d3 check. But I guess at the end of the day, do you really want to do that? You know, now it's like, well, what do you have? You got to open up position against the enemy king. Your king is in the center too. So, rook c8, very telegraphic move. What about your king position? Where are you putting your king? Is your king safe? a3, and now queen d5. But this, you know, this is getting close to drawville after queen d5. I don't know if I want to play queen d5. You can play this safely, but I feel like, you know, you were much better, and now it's pretty equal. Kind of an afterthought. Takes, knight takes. Now this is a guy, like, clearly you're better than him. I'm basing this on the play in the opening. And you're going to have to win from an equal position where you have very little advantage. Wait. I don't know. I mean, he has to play like bishop d2. Maybe knight c3. But I mean, for heaven's sake, you know, develop your pieces. So he gets aggressive. He plays e4. This is a little bit risky. Alright, it's a spicy move. I think if he's the weaker player, he should probably, like, just play solidly. Bishop d2. Honestly. And if c5, white can play, well, probably takes, and then try to vacuum if rook takes rook c1. I would play for a draw here with white. I have the impression that white is the weaker player. But e4, I could be wrong. Knight f6, and I don't think this is a no-brainer. You also have this, because you have some squares, and there's always knight e7, but not really. Alright, so this knight is pretty quiet here. But I like your structure. You know, he has the more, like, obvious structural deficiency. Now Arsenal played g6. I'm not sure if I want to play g6 or not. Maybe it's fine. I think, like, bishop here is probably okay. The bishop looks both ways. I'm not worried about rook g1. You're going to play g6 if you have to. I'm not going to castle into bishop h6. I think you would play g6 now. But the question is, should you play g6 unprovoked? And is the bishop better on e7 than it is on g7? I'm not sure. Okay, g6, interesting move. Rook c1, bishop g7. There's obviously pressure here later on. And now bishop f4. No relation to acerbate. It's purely coincidental. He's moving the same piece twice. Now, it's time for a very extreme consideration. King d7. Probably not. But, you know, I never like to leave anything, like, completely out out of consideration. If king d7, bishop e5, you're in a pin. You'll have to trade down into the ending. On the other hand, I don't think it's that bad, and your king is decently placed for an endgame. It's possible. I wouldn't like criticize black for playing king d7 here. Instead, he plays c6, stopping d5. White has access to this square, which would make it interesting to know what black was going to do anyway. Other than king d7, you might have had to do it anyway. Now you can castle, which deserves serious consideration. If you didn't want to play king d7, maybe castling is an option. So now knight d7, and for the first time I see a glimmer of hope for black. This rook c3 move is like noob city, man. Rook c3 is very foolish. I mean, is this guy seriously like... He hasn't castled or connected his rooks yet, and he's like doubling his rooks. Is he going to put his rook on b3? Seriously? Is there a reason to put his rook on a diagonal with your bishop on g7? This is the worst move of the game. He's totally giving you chances now. Knight d7, great move, and then you have c5 and e5. Suddenly, out of nowhere, black seems to have an advantage. And this is a misconception. So he thinks he's like inducing some kind of weaknesses, but b5 is like, dude, you're not helping yourself. Your rook is misplaced. Oh man, white just squandered his whole position. Now black is running c5. Black's pawns are actually fine. All the pawns on the right color. Yeah, positional Arsenal fan. The beautiful move now. Out of nowhere, black's winning. Black went from nothing to like winning in 4 moves, essentially. That's pretty sick. Literally 3 moves ago, you had almost no advantage, and now you're just winning. It's unbelievable. So he manages to find maybe the best try here, rook c3, and I would say this is a tough one. You can obviously castle. That's what you did. c4 is also interesting. And then king d2. Yeah, he didn't castle. He didn't put his king on e2. It ends up on d2. And you took on d4. But can you guys say releasing the tension too early? It looks interesting here. I mean, his king is also not in a good place. So I guess if you play rook d8, he has the possibility of bishop g5, but you have pawn takes pawn there as well. So he's out of luck. So if you play rook d8, white has this doubling up, and then you'll be forced to find some kind of crushing tactic. But I mean, c4 is definitely a good move. You're also threatening this. You have knight b6, knight c5. A lot of interesting possibilities here. But I can see why you wouldn't want to let him double. My fear is that like he might get back to a holdable position now after the simplifications. So takes d4. Maybe knight takes d4. Then you would take. And white is an ugly position at best, but still clinging to life. He plays bishop takes. You play knight e5, a nice move with these squares. Really weak player would play bishop takes e5 now, but it might be the best chance for survival. He plays this, and then he plays this. And is black winning? It looks tough for white. I love black's chances here. But to conclusively say black is winning isn't that easy. See the evaluation? It's at like 1.5. That's the cutoff between a winning position and a draw. B3 looks logical. Although I think, yeah, I guess you got to play B3. Interesting endgame. We obviously need to centralize our king. Probably play h5. I want to fix this pawn, his pawn on a dark square. He should play h3 at some point. I'm not sure if this did anything. You got access to b4, check. Okay, fine. What does it do? Oops. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. That's the problem. Arsenal's tactics start to kick in. So white's in deep trouble. He has to play king d1. Which obviously looks horrible. And he's probably lost. I mean, it's lost anyway. Check, king c1. And then rook here. And it's hard to imagine that black could possibly not win this position. So after bishop d6. After bishop d6, it looks like he has to try rook a1. Rook a1 or b4. b4. I was going to ask. I hate to ask. So if he plays b4 right away, he runs into bishop b2. So b3 is okay, and then on bishop d6 he has to play like b4 now. And if you go back to e5, he can defend with like rook b1. He's barely hanging on. And if you take the pawn on h2, he can trap your bishop with like f4, but not really, right? You might be able to play e5 or something like that. So it's tough. I mean, white should probably lose, but he has some chances to hang on. But after this, it's really ugly. Damn. That's just brutal. What about king e3? It's better than what happened. He goes here, and this is comical. After rook d6. So he loses a piece after king c2 with rook d2 check. Or, even better, he can play king e3, allowing bishop d2, mate. Good game. So anyway, yeah. So rook d8 check, black wins. White just resigned. Obviously knight d4, we just pin it and win it. Anyway guys, good games. Thanks for joining me. We'll be back hopefully tomorrow if I'm still alive with Blitz challenges tomorrow morning here on lichesss and Twitch at noon my time, which is 12 CEST. Thanks, Mr. Coffee. Don't forget, guys, support the stream. Support the stream. Donate your hard-earned money to help me go to tournaments. And anyway, it was fun. I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow. Have a great one. Thanks, Mr. Coffee. Move 11. Fried Food Day. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Hey. Bye-bye.